We are live.
All right, cool. I want to welcome you to this episode of the Rogues Radio Podcast Live. My name is Dave Beatty. I'm one of your hosts. For the almost nearly 30 years, I've been a professional illustrator and graphic designer. Worked on a lot of fun stuff that people have heard of, things like Justice League of America, Batman Incorporated, Grifter. Maybe you haven't heard about Grifter. Anyhow, enough about that. I want to welcome back my co-host. This is Mr. Eric Alexander. Eric, please tell the folks listening and watching at home what you've done as a creative professional.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I am Eric Alexander, and I am the associate producer of a feature film called Occupants, which features Star Trek Voyager actor Robert Picardo. It is also currently available on Tubi, which is an ad-based streaming platform. And also, I was the editor and publisher of the official Occupants comic book tie-in.
Very cool. So as usual, we start the show off with TV and movie news. So tell me, Eric, what's going on? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world of TV and movie news, but tell me, Eric, what's going on?
Well, I thought that we should probably go over the box office. We kind of established a precedent last time where we did talk about the box office totals. So I'm going to bring it up real quick. So Midway apparently overperformed. My understanding was they thought that it was going to get it was actually going to lose the box office battle this weekend to Dr. Sleep, but they were number one with 17.9 million. Dr. Sleep was number two at 14.1 million. Playing with Fire was number three at 12.7 million, and then Last Christmas was number four at 11.4 million. And then our sort of newsmaker of last week, Terminator Dark Fate, is now down to fifth place at 10.8 million. Their total after 2 weeks stands at 48.5 million. Of course, this is domestic only, but still, that is pretty bad for Terminator. Right below Terminator is Joker, which we both enjoyed, and we did a favorable review last episode. That is now, their total now stands at 313 million domestically. I believe they're very close to the billion mark internationally. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil was right behind Joker at 8.4 million. I'd have to say that Maleficent, Mistress of Evil has to be a disappointment as well. Their total domestically stands at 97.7 million. I'm not sure if their international is doing better, but that's definitely not a good number for Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and definitely underperforming compared to the original. And then we've got Harriet at 7.4 million. Their total stands at 23.6 million. Zombieland Double Tap was another kind of it just didn't gain any traction, it seems like. I own the first Zombieland movie. I'm not sure have you seen the first Zombieland, Dave?
Yeah, I do. We used to own it. I think we sold it in a yard sale, but we used to own it.
So I love that intro. That intro is one of the coolest things in cinema to me, like bar none. The way that the characters interact with the graphics at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
I love that scene, and the way that it's all slowed down. Like, honestly, it gives me chills just thinking about it. But this movie didn't grab me with the trailers or anything, and I didn't go see it. And apparently, most of America felt the same way. Zombieland Double Tap is number 9 this week, and their box office total domestically stands at 66.6 million. That's funny, huh? 666. So, yeah. Bad luck for them. And then the Addams Family, they're cruising there at the end at 91.4 million. So, be interesting to see if they actually hit that 100 million mark domestically. Now, my understanding is you did see Midway this weekend. Is that correct?
I did see Midway. I quite enjoyed it. I talked to some. I'm in the middle of playing. It's going to take several years to finish, but I'm doing sort of Risk on steroids. What is it? A War in Europe, the strategy game. And I have some friends who play it with me, and it's totally World War II. It's very super technical and all this kind of stuff, and it's kind of fun. It's War in Europe.
War in Europe.
Yeah, it's like a big, complicated strategy game thing.
Like
like I
Axis and
said,
Allies, or something different than that?
it's kind of like it's a tabletop game. Like I said, it's kind of like Risk on steroids. I guess it's a very super complicated version of Risk. It's going to take several years to play, essentially.
Wow.
Yeah, I basically am playing Italy. I'm essentially Mussolini in the game,
Oh,
and yeah,
Italy.
yeah, that's me.
Like, I think the absolute worst performer in World War II was Italy.
Well, my career stands for anything. I like pushing things uphill with my nose. Anyhow, so I did see Midway, and I quite enjoyed it. I know that it was some people were kind of poking fun at it. I know on some of the movie blogs and stuff that I follow, they seem to think that it wasn't going to do very well. I don't know why. And then I talked to some of my friends who I play War in Europe with, and most everyone enjoyed it. Some people had some criticism with it, which I didn't agree with. I mean, I generally just enjoyed it. I thought they did an amazing job of putting you in those planes, and some of those sequences. Like I felt like I was in some of those planes, and it was intense. And
Have you seen the previous Midway movie from the I think that was from the 60s, right?
Yes, I've seen it. It's been a long time. I remember enjoying it as a kid, but it didn't really click with me because it seemed to be a little, I don't know. I might have been too young when I saw it because it was a long time ago when I saw it, and I saw it on TV, you know. But I really enjoyed Midway. I quite enjoyed it, and I found myself actually, because I think it was it a couple episodes back, we were talking about Poe Dameron, and how they told us that Poe Dameron was going to be this maverick Top Gun fighter pilot kind of guy. And I love the idea of that. And we also kind of waxed poetic about how in the original Star Wars, you know, Lucas and ILM, they used actual World War II footage, and then some footage from some old World War II movies to help determine like the pacing and everything of some of the space battles that happened in the original Star Wars movie. And watching this film, all I could think of was like it's a real shame that they didn't. I feel like they've gotten so far away from looking at actual dogfighting combat footage that I feel like it's kind of lost something. And Midway did a good job of capturing that and actually making it feel like you were in those cockpits of those planes. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And all I could think of is like it's a shame that I feel like some of the Star Wars stuff they're not looking at. I feel like sometimes they're not looking at the things that inspired the original Star Wars that gave it sort of that believability, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we had that discussion previously. It's always been my understanding that George Lucas based the Death Star run on actual World War II fighter footage. And of course, in The Force Awakens, it feels like to me that the Star Killer base run is based on the Death Star run. And if people follow my logic here, it's too disconnected from the source material. That's why it's just, to me, it falls flat. I mean, it just completely falls flat. And I think that's why. Interesting thing with Midway, when I was in the Navy Reserve, we had a veteran of the Battle of Midway come in during one of our drill weekends and actually talk about the battle. And it was really interesting. The sad thing was he was so old. He had that thing where his voice was very quiet.
Right.
But I was super impressed because, you know, there sailors there. There were sailors there that, you know, were 18 years old, you know, as young as 18 years old. I think we might have even had some of the sea cadets in there that were like, you know, 12 and 13, you know. And it was, I mean, they, you know, give them credit. I mean, nobody said anything. I mean, we were trying our best to listen to every word that he said, you know. And it was you know, nobody was going to interrupt him and say, hey, can you speak louder, you know?
Right.
As you can imagine, there was a lot of reverence in that room, being a bunch of Navy sailors listening to this real life hero talk about the Battle of Midway, and he got a real thrill out of it. He had all sorts of cards and all sorts of visual aids and things like that. So it's a pretty moving, pretty neat thing, and I haven't gone to see it yet. The thing for me, and you can tell me what you think, in the trailers, I wasn't really digging the CGI. Did you have any issues with the CGI?
I didn't. I honestly didn't. I
Okay.
mean, there was a couple of scenes. It's weird. It's like once you're in the planes and you're in the air, or you're on the ships and you're on the water, I feel like it works pretty well. I mean, for me, the only time I felt like you could tell it was CGI was when they were on land and they were looking towards the water. It was a weird thing. It was like that was when it felt like there was a disconnect. But to be honest, I mean, overall, I just really enjoyed the film. I didn't question a lot of the CGI. I felt, like I said, there's quite a few times I felt like I was in those planes with those pilots. You can tell, they're like I said, there's a couple scenes where you can definitely tell, but at the same point, they would have had so many quote unquote vintage planes in the air to try and do some of this stuff. And I don't know how they would have done anything with those aircraft.
Well, that's what they did in the original Midway movie.
Right.
The original Midway movie, they had real ships, real planes, all that stuff. There was no CGI back then.
No, I know.
It's one of the reasons that's personally, that movie was very powerful for me as a kid. I still remember the torpedo bomber run. Do they show that in this version? The torpedo bombers that get blown away and killed.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
That is just so dramatic to me. Almost makes me want to well up when you think about what those guys went through. Because they were just obliterated.
Right.
But I'll never forget that scene. It almost traumatized me as a child. So because I just was like, wow, So
well, and that's the thing that for me that gave this film a lot more heft and significance too was, we were essentially watching it on Veterans Day weekend. The fact that there are a lot of actual real historical heroes, like in the movie, like it's all based off of real stuff. And like I said, I remember seeing the Midway when I was a kid, but it was a long time ago. But I don't know how well they would have been able to. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not sure the way they made this movie, if they could have done it with actual planes and ships, because to be honest, it really does feel like they're trying to put you in the cockpit of these planes and have you go along on the mission with them and kind of live it too. I feel like that was definitely a goal of what they were trying to do with the film. And for me, it worked. I mean, other people, I can't speak for everyone, but the biggest complaint I got from one of my friends I played War in Europe with was and I guess this is a bit of a spoiler, but they don't really show you exactly what happens with the Yorktown. It's kind of just like it's kind of mentioned and you see it on fire off to the side. They don't actually show the attack on the Yorktown. I think it might have had something to do with runtime. And he was kind of disappointed in that. But other than that, he seemed like he enjoyed it. I mean,
that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. So.
Right. But I enjoyed it. My wife enjoyed it. We had some friends that went with us. They enjoyed it. I mean, I just enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, but I'm able to kind of, just enjoy things, I think, and not be too terribly, critical of them at times. I just was sucked into the movie and enjoyed it. So
that's good. And I do want to put it out there that since we are coming off Veterans Day weekend, are we good? It looks like we're having a little problem with the stream. Does it look good to you, Dave?
It hung up for just a minute. You might want to start over there.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that coming off of Veterans Day weekend, there are very few World War II veterans left. They're dying in droves by the day. So if you have the opportunity to meet one, to talk with one, go out of your way and do it because they're not going to be around too much longer. It's one of the sad things when a movie like this comes out, because I think about stuff like that there are so few World War II veterans left. Go say hi, maybe listen to a story if you can, because their time with us is very quickly approaching its end.
True.
All right. Do we want to move on to the streaming wars?
Yeah. Let's move on to streaming wars.
All right. Let me go ahead and set this up. This is I'm still dealing with this new software, so these are the little technical issues that come up sometimes. Let's see here. All right, so I kind of wanted to get this not so fun stuff out of the way first. You and I have talked before about some of the changes that are going on at YouTube, and the fact that there are many streamers out there that we support and we like that are really freaking out right now. And I feel like in a lot of ways they have good reason to. I'm not sure if you've been following a lot of this, Dave, but you were actually the first person to mention something to me about this when, what was it, Analog Toys put out their video?
It was retro blasting.
I always get them. Oh God, I think I did that last time too.
Yeah,
Analog Toys is a channel that I watch all the time, and they're friends with retro blasting. So they talk about each other on their shows, and yes, retro blasting. So retro blasting had a video that you brought to my attention, where they were, in my mind, one of the first YouTube channels that was kind of taking this seriously, and were really concerned about what was going on. And so,
right.
Whoops. So I just took my link down. YouTube just came out with a new video where they were talking about the changes that are happening and why.
Well, let me set this up real quick while I was monitoring this stuff. So those people who have been actually listening to the audio version of the show, because of course this new live component, this is still very new for us, but those have been listening to the audio show going back to the days when Lynn Workman was my host, had heard a lot about all the problems I was having with YouTube. Basically, in the middle of the night, the bots that, basically search the videos or whatever for copyright claims or all this different stuff, they'll flag stuff in the middle of the night. And I was constantly having videos pulled down while I was asleep. And then I would get up in the morning and the show that I'd spent all this time editing and putting together and uploading to YouTube had just disappeared overnight because of one little thing or whatever. And it was driving me absolutely berserk. And I was having all kinds of issues with it. Part of the reason we started the audio show is because I wanted to get away from YouTube because of all the problems I was having. Because prior to the audio show, retrospective, was just a YouTube show. That's all it was. But I was having so many problems with shows being pulled down for all kinds of issues. I had to recut the Hulk episode so many times. It absolutely drove me insane before I could finally get it to even go live or people could watch it. And so I started posting some of the shows on the Facebook page because I could post those up and I wasn't dealing with the same problems. And I had threatened to move the show to Vimeo. Well, I have set up a Vimeo account. It's taking longer than I want because I'm recutting the episodes as I do it. But I am slowly going to basically migrate most of the shows over to Vimeo, and then the Vimeo page is going to act as a backup for the video show. You know what I mean? So,
and I do want to mention, we talked about this off mic. We are using StreamYard now, and we've upped our membership. So now we're actually going to be recording our videos through there as well. So, and we're doing the multi-stream right now. We're currently on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, my Twitter, and our Facebook page.
Right. And so for some reason, if, I don't know, YouTube starts pulling stuff down, we're just going to take the show and we're going to migrate that content over to Vimeo. That's all set up. It's ready to go. We've got a couple episodes up right now. They're older episodes, but I want to get all the older episodes up, but I have to re-edit them before I can put them up because I had used some of the free YouTube resources at the time, like some of their music and stuff. So I'm having to take all that out and re-edit and then recut the episodes and then move them over. But I've been monitoring what's been going on with YouTube for quite some time because it's hampered my ability to build an audience. It's, messed with the release schedule of when I could get shows, because I'll have a show ready to go live and have a schedule in mind for what I'm trying to do. And then for some reason, they won't let the episode go live. Or like I said, they'll pull it down in the middle of the night. And then I'll get up and I'll find out it's like, oh, you've been flagged for this or you've been flagged for that. And anyone who's paid any attention to the content on our YouTube show, it's tame compared to what other people do in terms of like using of music and images and video. I mean, it's tame, so I couldn't understand why I was having to deal with all these problems. And then when I would reach out to other friends who had YouTube shows or whatever, they're like, hey, look, I'm having an issue with this and I'm having an issue with that. And I'm like, well, that's really weird. I don't understand why they're being so strict with you. So it's been really frustrating. So that's why I have been keeping my ear to the ground and paying attention to what's going on with YouTube, because I'm literally been just waiting for them to just pull the plug on my YouTube channel altogether.
Yeah, it's been bad. It seems so egregious sometimes, because it seems like there's certain channels that literally, like, the day of a movie or a TV show comes out and it's completely full of brand new footage that they're talking over, and
Right.
then you have another guy who has like one image, on his broadcast, like one image that's like a poster or something like that, total fair use kind of thing, and that they're flagged, they're demonetized, or their their video is just taken down.
Right. And the majority of my YouTube channel is basically been demonetized for years, because I kept getting flagged for everything, and I just gave up. So like, if you go to my YouTube channel and you like the episodes and you're watching it, that's great. Thank you. But I'm not seeing anything for anything on my YouTube channel. And it was just crazy, because I wasn't trying to monetize it. I wasn't concerned about making a bunch of money like through the show. But if I'd ever been to the point where I could afford, to hire an editor or hire some other people to help me do a few things, it would have been nice. But my whole YouTube adventure has been frustrating to say the least. And that's part of the reason why YouTube just eventually was no longer a priority for me. They weren't supporting me. So it's sort of like, well, when I get an episode together, our podcast service, Libsyn, is set up to automatically, push the audio version of the show over to my channel. So if people are following it, there's always new stuff there. But the YouTube channel hasn't been a priority for me for quite some time, unfortunately, because of all the difficulties and the problems that I've had. And I'm going to start hopefully doing more tutorial videos and stuff that people have quite liked. But the reason there's been a lag on putting out more tutorial videos on YouTube is I've been really debating whether or not to put them on YouTube at all. And it's like, if they're not going to, really help me by just, playing fair, then why should I put my content I'm producing on their service? So, I mean, the new tutorials, they might just go to Vimeo, or they might just go to the Facebook page. I don't know. But that's the reason there hasn't been more tutorial videos, is because I've been really debating about, is it worth investing the time to put this on YouTube or not?
Well, if you haven't seen this already, you're going to love this. So this is the new video that YouTube itself put out for creators. This is part of the Creator Studio. Have you seen this?
I had heard a little bit about it, but I haven't actually watched it, or because like I said,
you need to watch it. You totally need to watch it, because unfortunately you have to be aware of this stuff. And I actually found out about this through Doomcock's channel, his Twitter, I should say, because he was talking about this. And so I went and watched the video, and I was just kind of appalled. And this is the core of the video, okay? These are the guidelines that they're throwing out there to content creators about this issue of whether you are a kid show. This is the big issue right now. Are you a kid show? So the criteria that they're putting out there is the subject matter of the video. Okay, not sure, so what are you talking about? All right. Um,
Right.
if children are the intended audience, it does seem like an obvious one. If it includes child actors or models, that also seems like an obvious one. If it includes characters, celebrities, or toys that appeal to children, this is the one that really gets under my skin. The next one is if it uses language that is meant for that is if it uses language that is meant for children to understand. What does that mean? If it includes
Lord.
activities that appeal to children, if it includes songs, stories, or poems that appeal to children, these ones are just like, this is why people are going insane.
But here's the thing: that is so broad. That could
Exactly.
be anything. I mean, that could literally be anything.
Literally, it can be our show because we're talking about the Mandalorian, and the Mandalorian obviously appeals to children. I mean, that's clear cut. So the issue is, how many of these check boxes do you have to have before you're quote unquote a kid show?
Well, according to what I've been dealing with on YouTube, any one of these would get you flagged as a kid show, because all you got to do is one thing, and they just go, offender.
Well,
and they label you.
This is gonna kill some of the bigger YouTube channels. The people that are really up there, the ones that are do this professionally. It's gonna kill them, because the people that talk about video games, the people that talk about Star Wars, the people that we like that do toy reviews, I'm wondering what's going to happen to all of them, because these guidelines, these specific these last four, characters, celebrities, or toys that appeal to children. I mean, come on. I mean, that's kind of like everything we talk about, so it's like, So this is what people are scared about, and rightly so. There was a positive spin that Doomcock had, actually, because he put out there that there is a petition, because this is all coming like from the FCC. This is all based on a lawsuit, a settlement that YouTube had because of the issue that basically the issue that YouTube was embroiled in was that they were collecting data on kids, and kids under this federal law are anybody under 13. If you're 13 or older, you're not a kid based on this standard. It's a law, and it has to do with data collection, because let's face it, all of social media is about data mining. That's what it is. So you're not supposed to do that to kids. That's the issue. That there's a law that says you're not supposed to do that to kids. So the issue was that YouTube was doing it, or at least wasn't, either whether they were doing it deliberately or they just weren't, their algorithms weren't right or whatever. They had kid users that were identified as kids, that they were registered as kids, and they were still collecting that metadata and apparently doing like targeted ads to them and things like that.
Right.
So that's what started this big mess. So now these are the guidelines that they're giving us. Literally, they're giving us, you and me, you know what I mean? Because we're doing stuff on YouTube right now. And to me, I'm just like, I can't make heads or tails of this. The big thing I wonder is, so is it a matter of having all these check boxes? If you have every single one, are you a kid show? Or is it like you have to have, 4 or 3 or 5, or what is it? Because if they're saying any one of these, I mean, they're destroying YouTube,
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I have a superhero for my avatar, and we have a bright colored logo. We're a kids show.
But you know what the other irony of all this is? For instance, it says about language, right? If it uses language that is meant for children to understand, it seems to me.
You mean English for some people who understand?
Yeah, exactly. No, but it seems to me what this is going to actually encourage is people to be more vulgar and curse more on YouTube. And it's kind of funny. I put that out there on my Twitter when I was reacting to all this, and somebody made the point. It's like, but they flag you for that too. They flag you for being too vulgar. So it's like, what are you supposed to do? To quote unquote not be a kid show. Me personally,
Maybe we should start every episode with that opening scene from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where Jason Mewes is just using the F word over and over again in this rap song. Maybe that's how we need to start the show from now on.
Well, it's funny because, I listened to our last show because I was listening for the audio quality because that was the first time we were on Facebook. So I listened to the entire show, and I realized I cursed a little bit more than I normally do on that show. And it kind of concerned me because, I do want our show to be family friendly. But that doesn't mean necessarily that I want a 5-year-old, watching or listening to us. But I want it to be family friendly. I would think, as long as you're talking about a mature kid, it'd be okay for them to listen to what we're talking about. And I try not to be super vulgar because, quite frankly, so many other YouTubers and streamers are very vulgar. They curse all the time, So
Right.
I don't really want to be in that category. And like I said, listening to our show, I was like, I felt like I cursed a little bit too much. Now I'm thinking I don't curse enough. Maybe I really need to ramp it up. I need to let some F-bombs fly. I just need to get a little rougher,
Well, and for me, I don't. I try not to curse a lot. Professionally, sometimes it's not a good idea. One. Number two, I do draw, and have drawn a lot of, all ages titles. So I try to be mindful of the language I use. We do have a couple episodes of, again, the video show that's on YouTube where there is some language here and there. And whenever there's a lot of language, I always would mark it. You know what I mean? Like, so that you'd have to be above a certain age in order to, watch or listen to the show. But, but that also just, that's so vague and weird. If it uses language that is meant for children to understand, hopefully if you understand English, you understand what I'm saying right now. And if you're a child, I'd like for you to think that you understand that I'm talking right now. It's just, that's the problem. This is so broad and so vague. It could be anything. I mean, they could use this to say anything as a kid's show. So I don't know. I don't know I don't know. I mean, I get it. I understand, we need to be mindful, and about, how things are being marketed in children and stuff. I think about the fact that it's like when we were growing up, I mean, a lot of the things that I love now to this day is stuff that was marketed to me as a kid, Transformers and G.I. Joe and Mask and all these things I've always enjoyed, Star Wars, it was a kid, it was marketed to me, and I still like it as an adult, I still appreciate it or collect certain things, as an adult.
Well, speaking of that, it kind of feels like what's happening as a legacy of that old mentality where like you couldn't, it was like, quote unquote, you couldn't market to children, period. So like, that's why like for 70s cartoons, because I think it changed in the early 80s.
Right.
I think it was Reagan who changed that. Basically, before you couldn't, it was like there was this big thing about marketing to children. So cartoon shows never had any merchandising. That's why like there's no merchandising for or there's very little merchandising for the Flintstones and things like that. You know what I mean? Those old school cartoons, because they weren't allowed to do that because it was said, oh well, this is targeted towards children. You're not allowed to do that. And then
Right.
Of course in the 80s it completely flipped, where like He-Man is considered like the pinnacle of this, where He-Man was the cartoon was created exclusively to sell a toy. Transformers is similar in that regard because Transformers originated in Japan as a toy, and then they made the cartoon here in the United States so they could market the toys. So it completely flipped. But I love that stuff. You know what I mean? So
Well, and here's the
and
thing.
to me it's a huge part of my childhood is what I'm trying to say. And so
Right.
it's like I don't think it corrupted me. Yeah, it made me buy a lot of stuff, or at least my parents bought a lot of stuff, right? But it didn't corrupt me is what I'm trying to say. I think
Right.
that stuff was good. And so I think of that stuff fondly today. But I feel like what's going on here with YouTube is it's sort of this vestige of that old thinking that goes way back to that, like, oh, again, the idea that you just can't market anything to children, which is just, come on, that's ridiculous. Of course you're going to market toys and things like that towards children. That's who they're meant for. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's the whole thing is just exhausting. I don't know. It's just so broad. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, for example, I was talking about, that people have been asking for me to post more tutorials and stuff, and I want to, but it's like, because it would involve, things that potentially could appeal to children, because I've worked on, for example, if I post a page from, let's say I post a page from Justice League that has Batman on it, and I'm talking about and demonstrating how to ink something. And I'm being very technical, and I'm talking about the digital toolbox and ways that you can complete this, page, things that you can do that brings extra value, that proves yourself in a different way, to your editor and your strength to the team in order to help you bolster your career. Even though I'm talking about the professional aspect of being an inker in the comic book industry, as a professional getting and keeping a job, it could still get labeled as a kid's show.
right.
And potentially never really get the kind of reach that it needs to the proper people for them in order to see it, that could actually help them with their career. Whereas, 7-year-olds, it might just show up in their feed and they may be confused by it and not understand. I mean,
Right.
I don't know. And like I said, if I felt like I could trust the bots to do a better job of screening, it'd be different. But the bots do a horrible job of screening. They just flag anything for any random thing. And those guidelines are so broad and so vague. Anything. I mean, literally right now, I have a superhero icon. We have a bright colored logo. We are a kids show.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I did want to mention what the actual consequences of all this really is it has to do with those targeted ads. Those targeted ads are basically what make creators money. The general ads, you can still make money from that, but the targeted ads are valued more. So what happens is, if you're a kid show, essentially you can't do the targeted ads anymore. So you have the general ads, and that's what happens. And it's important to realize that YouTube already went through a bunch of changes with monetization, where a lot of the smaller channels now that used to actually get some, get something, they get nothing now. So that already happened. So what you're talking about is that pot is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You know what I mean? For independent creators.
But also, too, the other aspect of it as well, if I remember correctly, it's going to affect to how your show natively shows up in terms of recommendations and who it's recommended to. So it's going to affect reach as well. And that for me is the thing that I find crippling, as we're trying to build an audience and figure out, where we fit in terms of, fandom and the community. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the thing that drives me nuts. But, the reality of it is, I don't own YouTube. They can do whatever they want. It's their company. They could ban me tomorrow and just pull my whole show down and everything I've done, but luckily there's other options like Vimeo and whatever. So, to me, all it means is I need to step up the time I've invested in recutting the old shows and getting those moved over to Vimeo. We have several new shows actually in production that I've been in the process of editing that need to go live, hopefully here in probably the next several weeks. So, it just gives me more reason to have shows debut first on Facebook and debut first on Vimeo, and hopefully find a way to appeal directly to our audience, and instead of putting stuff on YouTube hoping it's going to find an audience there, where if they're just not going to let us find an audience, it's like, well, if they won't copyright strike it, we'll post over there, but I'm not going to invest a lot of time in figuring out how to appeal to that audience anymore. It's a huge audience, but if I have too many more roadblocks in terms of trying to get the content seen, it's not worth the time. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, no, I totally see that. And the thing that I'm concerned about is some of those YouTubers that I really like, and they may be relying on some of that revenue to keep their show going, and literally that them having to make that decision that well, I can't do this anymore. It's not going to pay the bills, so I'm closing shop. You know what I mean? So that's the big concern I have for these independent creators, because one of the things on the video they said was, "Hey, if you have any questions, consult a lawyer." It's like, yeah,
Wow.
the normal average YouTube creator is going to hire a lawyer to figure out how to do his content, which goes back to what's been said by a lot of creators, which is that YouTube is becoming less and less indie friendly. They are becoming more and more aligned with corporate interests, because obviously those companies can figure all this stuff out, figure out what those things mean, because they do have an army of lawyers.
Right.
But the average creator doesn't, and certainly isn't using a lawyer for their content. It's just not happening, because entertainment lawyers are extremely expensive. So
I'm well aware.
So all right. I think as far as YouTube, we can move on from there. I did want to talk about Disney Plus, because obviously we're going to be talking about the Mandalorian, but I wanted to talk about the service itself, because obviously this is a big event in the streaming wars. Disney Plus came out on Tuesday, the day after Veterans Day. And I'm kind of curious about what your experience has been on Disney Plus thus far.
My experiences so far on Disney Plus have been positive. I know some people are having login and different kinds of issues. I haven't experienced any of that. Now, I was not trying to get on Disney Plus when everyone else was doing it, though, because I have stuff I'm doing, work commitments, you know what I mean? Like, so I wasn't trying to get on Disney Plus as it was launching like everyone else was. I didn't even completely finish signing up until like late Tuesday night, actually. And then the first thing I watched was The Mandalorian. So far, I haven't had a lot of issues. I watched Mandalorian. I watched some classic Spider-Man cartoons. I was excited about that. I verified the Cat from Outer Space is actually on Disney Plus. I will be watching it. I did a lot of searching to see what other things were on there. I was surprised to see the original Disney Zorro film from the 50s is on there. A lot of the Davy Crockett content that I watched as a kid is on there. Black Hole is on there. So I haven't had really any issues with it at all. And I'm excited personally and professionally, because there's a lot of movies and shows and things I would have liked to have talked about that I felt like was going to be lost to time, that no one was bothering to maintain. So, for example, the both of us, we could do a show about the black hole. We could do a retrospective about the black hole. It's one of my favorite science fiction films. And we can actually tell people where to go see it, and right. And I actually watched part of it the other night. The quality is really good. The sound's really good. I mean, it's a good way to experience that film. I haven't had a lot of issues with the interface. For myself personally, I feel like it's pretty well designed. I haven't had a lot of issues. So far, all my experiences with Disney Plus have been positive. I don't have a lot of gripes with Disney Plus. I've thoroughly enjoyed it so far.
That's good. My experience has been a little bit different. So I
know you texted a little bit about it. I'm curious to hear.
So I did try to do Disney Plus basically at launch. Like, I think it came out at 3 a.m. our time. Arizona time is when it actually launched. It actually was live. And that morning I woke up around 6 in the morning, because I had to take my kids to school. And I had talked to my kids about Disney Plus and the idea that we were going to do the free trial, because right now everybody's getting Disney Plus for free right now. That's important to realize. Whether you if you signed up for it, you're still getting it free for 7 days. So I discussed it with my kids, and we were kind of excited about it. We kind of got excited about, let's check this out. So I was like, okay, it should be live in the morning by the time we get up. And my kids usually, they finish up with what they have to do, getting dressed. They finish up eating and stuff like that. before we actually have to leave, and they'll usually put the TV on and watch like a YouTube video or something. And so this time we were going to watch Disney Plus. I had it all set up. The thing was that I was concerned from the night previous that the app wasn't available anywhere. So I do most of my streaming on my PlayStation 4, and I was really concerned that I went to the PlayStation store and there was no Disney Plus app, and I was like, so the app's not going to be available until the launch. I was like, really? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, and my thinking was like, you should have the app available already so that people can start kind of playing around with it and seeing what the format is, so they can kind of find the shows and things like that. Even if the shows don't go anywhere, they don't work, or maybe they just go to trailers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some sort of a soft opening. That's what I'm talking about. And it was funny because I was concerned about this going to bed that the night before. I was like, is this going to work? And sure enough, it didn't work. When I woke up in the morning, the app was available. So I downloaded the app and it didn't work. It just did not work on the PlayStation 4. So that was disappointing. So my kids didn't get to see anything before school or anything like that. And I was just like, okay, well, hopefully by the time I get back home, it'll be working. So I ended up, doing some errands and things like that. And I got home, I think around 10:30. And when I got home, I was like, okay, let's try this. And nothing worked except The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian was the only show that I could get to work. So I was like, well, that's good, at least, because we had talked that we were going to review it. So I was like, well, that's good. At least I can see The Mandalorian. So I watched The Mandalorian, and it was skipping all over the place. It was skipping. It was stopping. It was having all sorts of issues. I was able to get through it, but I was irritated. And, after the show was over, I tried to see if anything else was working. And it was still like, I think, another hour or two before I could actually look at anything else. So I do want to say that I realized that this was a huge undertaking that Disney did, but I really think that they kind of screwed up with the launch with day one is what I'm talking about. As of today, I haven't really used Disney Plus very much, but yesterday I was still having skipping issues and issues where videos were stopping in the middle. They would repeat. Like what would happen was they would kind of hiccup where they would basically like stop and then they would go back like a minute back in the video and replay it. And then it would start going from there. So I've been having some issues on the PlayStation 4. That's where I watch most of my streaming content. I've been having issues on the PlayStation 4 with Disney Plus. Now, as far as the content goes, this is another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm curious. You mentioned about so many of the titles that you're excited about, and there are a lot of amazing titles available on the service. And that's one of the first things I did was I went to the series tab and I kind of looked at everything, and I went to the movies tab and I kind of looked at everything. I don't think their content is anywhere near what Netflix is. I don't know what the numbers are. That wasn't something that I was able to find out. Do you have any idea what their numbers are as far as actual content?
No, I don't know. I mean, I know that they don't have the volume of content that Netflix has, but for me, in all honesty, there's a lot of stuff on Netflix I'm not going to watch, so I guess there's just a lot of content that I have had to go. For example, like here's a good example: Spider-Man cartoons. Okay, this is a good example. I don't know why they don't have the 60s Spider-Man cartoons on here, so I assume there's some kind of rights issue or something, because that's a classic Marvel cartoon that I had hoped they were going to have on the service that they don't. Hopefully they'll get it eventually.
That's one that stood out to me too, by the way.
Right. But they still have Amazing Spider-Man. They still have Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. They still have a lot. They've got the X-Men 90s cartoon. They have a lot of those shows, those cartoon shows that I had been wanting to watch. And then prior to this, I've had to go to all manner of strange extremes just to watch Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That's not been an easy show to just watch. At one point, it was on Netflix and it was easy to watch, and then it went off of Netflix, and ever since then, it's been hard to run down where it was.
Yeah, I was very excited to see Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That was my bread and butter growing up.
And so for me, that's the thing that has me excited. There's a lot of stuff that I've wanted to read. For example, it's not the world's greatest movie, but The Cat from Outer Space. I've wanted to rewatch that movie for years and years and years, and have never been able to find a simple way to watch it. And it's one of those films I thought, because Disney has never made, making that film available a priority. So I just assumed at one point, that it would just be a memory I had, and you'd never be able to watch it again. So there's a lot of fun things like that they have on here. And there's a lot of things I haven't seen in a very long time. Like, as a kid, I enjoyed the Davy Crockett movies, and I'm excited to go back and watch some of those, because there's a lot of nostalgia for me, with a lot of those titles, because I grew up with a lot of that content. So that's why I'm excited about it. It doesn't have, for example, I pay for CBS All Access for Star Trek Discovery. That's the main reason I pay for that. Micah, my wife, likes watching, Survivor. She's watching Survivor right now while we're recording the show, So there's other things that we watch on CBS All Access. But the reason I have a subscription to it is for Star Trek Discovery. So I don't have any issues. If the content is good and it's something I want to watch, I'll subscribe to a service to watch just that one show. That's me. I'm a psychopath. There's a lot of content on here I'm excited about. There's some of the Marvel movies that I've wanted to buy, and I've just been dragging my feet to buy, that now I don't have to worry with buying. They're all on here. So, and there's a lot of stuff I've wanted to rewatch that I've only seen once or twice. Some of the Pixar movies, like Brave. I wanted to rewatch Brave, but it wasn't something I was going to rush out and buy, but I was curious to watch it again. I'm going to be able to watch it again now. So even though the content is not as great in terms of, volume, they do have a lot of, premium content that people sometimes will subscribe to a service, for. And I applaud them for having as much, for example, of those classic Marvel cartoons as they have available. I mean, that's a pretty good library of content. I mean, especially when you see that they actually have Spider-Woman on there. Spider-Woman, I think the last time I was able to actually easily watch a Spider-Woman cartoon, it was a VHS tape that I put into a player. That was the last time I easily knew how to watch Spider-Woman. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, I think I had seen where in certain countries, I don't know what the deal is with the Hulk. Let me put that out there. There's something going on with the Hulk. I don't know what the deal is with it. But I know in certain countries they were able to watch the 80s Hulk cartoons, and they don't appear to be on Disney Plus. That kind of sucks. I was hoping they were going to be on here. But beyond a few things here and there.
What is the Hulk cartoon that's available there? Because there is a Hulk cartoon available on Disney Plus, isn't there?
Yeah, that's the one from the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have all the 90s Fox stuff that Fox created. They've got, that Avengers, that Ant-Man led Avengers cartoon. They've got the Iron Man. They've got Spider-Man Unlimited. That's a show that I enjoyed that I never really finished. I'm excited to be able to go back and rewatch a lot of that. So they've got a lot of fun stuff on here, and I'm very excited about it. But the Hulk cartoon I'm talking about is the one from the 80s. I would go to YouTube and find it and tell you to share my screen so we could watch it, but it would probably get this pulled down in the middle of the night. So we're not going to do that, because Hulk is something you have to stay away from when it comes to YouTube. Maybe that's why Disney Plus doesn't have it on their service. They don't want to get their ads and whatever pulled off of YouTube because they have Hulk content. But no, it's just it has one of the best intros, I think, of all the animated cartoons. I'll send you I'll send you something about it after we finish the show so you can see it. But
well, no, I remember the 80s Hulk cartoon that
yeah,
basically ran at the same time as Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to watch that all the time. So yeah, I was kind of hoping that would be on there. So that's disappointing. But the one that's the ones that stick out to me, and you're probably going to find this amusing, is where's droids and where's Ewoks and where's the battle for Endor and all that stuff.
Yeah, I had a conversation at work about that. I was surprised that a lot of the Ewok TV movie stuff wasn't on here, because I was for sure that would be on here, because that content was being created at the same time I think Star Tours originally opened. So I was kind of surprised that stuff's not on here. I mean, I get the holiday special not being on here.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, why isn't the holiday special on there? What do you mean you get it? I don't get that. Where is the holiday special?
I get that that's not on here.
We need the holiday special on Disney Plus. We should be advocating for that. We should be demanding it.
I'm not going to demand for it, but if you want to pull the Boba Fett cartoon out of there and put that on Disney Plus, I'll champion that. But I don't need to see the lady from Golden Girls running a cantina. But that's just me. But no, I mean, hey,
it's still better than the Last Jedi. So,
well, that's yeah. But here's the thing. I'm still happy and excited with the content they were able to put on here. I think there's going to, as contracts run out, I think more and more content is going to become live on Disney Plus. So I think I'm pretty sure Disney wants to be a player in this space. It's pretty obvious they've made a heavy investment. And I think it's going to continue to improve. And I think more stuff will become available as, like I said, the rights issues and contracts and stuff get resolved. We'll get more and more content on here. And I'm just excited that the idea that there is a hub where I can go to, where I can find a bunch of these classic Marvel cartoons that I've always enjoyed watching. And like I said, as we review and talk about some of this content on the show, it's great that we have an easy place that we can tell people, if you have Disney Plus, you can watch it there. So,
and it is free right now. Like as I mentioned, no matter who you are, it's free for 7 days. So I'm kind of happy that within the free window, I can see 2 episodes of The Mandalorian to really make me decide how I feel about the show, which of course we're going to really delve into that a little bit later. But I do wonder why Droids isn't there and why Ewoks isn't there. I've never heard some sort of rights issue. I mean, I know that they've never been fully released. Like I have the Droids DVD that was released years and years and years ago, and it has like, I think 2 or 3 episodes on it. They're edited episodes. They're mega episodes that were edited together. So it's not even presented in the correct format. It's not presented like it was when it was broadcast. They also got rid of the song. The theme song is taken out.
Right.
Because I know that there was a rights issue there because it was the drummer from the Police, right? He was the one who did the theme song, so he probably don't want to pay him, because he probably got a pretty good deal to do that.
Yeah,
so,
all I can figure is because I think Nelvana produced a lot of those cartoons, and they were based out of Canada. So all I can assume is it's some kind of weird tangled rights issue, and whoever. Sometimes I wonder if like people own this stuff and they don't even realize they own it, and they're sitting on something by accident because they don't realize that their company owns the rights to whatever it is because of some merger or some buyout thing. And there's some weird asset they have that's a line on a form somewhere and they don't realize, oh, we own Ewoks. What do you know? So that's all I can figure.
Music is an infamous problem. I know that. For instance, the Star Trek cartoon didn't have any of the original music in it because they didn't want to pay the people that did the live action show their rates. You know what I mean? So it was all new music. It's a different theme, everything. So I know that becomes an issue sometimes, and that's my best speculation about why they wouldn't put it on there, because it's completed content. So why not just put it there? It's stuff that I would like to see. I'm sure there's other people that would like to see it. I would like to show my kids, some of that stuff. So I find it weird that they didn't put it on there. And then with the Ewok movies, those were released on DVD, and so I'm kind of really that one really is like a head scratcher for me. It's like why wouldn't you put Caravan of Courage and The Battle for Endor on Disney Plus? I mean, they're done, so why not just throw them on there? So
Right.
I don't quite understand that. I don't know. It's kind of the thing with Disney. I also noticed that the way that the marketing for Disney Plus, they mentioned that essentially it's almost like 4 channels or 5 channels where it's Disney, Pixar, what are the other ones? Disney, Pixar, Marvel Studios,
National Geographic.
National Geographic, and Lucasfilm. But when you actually go on the site, there's no Lucasfilm tab. There's just a Star Wars tab. Do you notice that?
Right. Yeah.
So there's no Indiana Jones. There's no, I don't know what other content they have. I don't know. Does Disney have the rights to like American Graffiti and THX and stuff like that?
Well, they may have the rights because of the deal with Fox, they probably do have the rights to those. But it gets into that weird nebulous thing about, do they consider that, Disney Plus fair? Like, do they want that to be considered, just straight Disney content? But
the thing is, even on Disney Plus, there's a Disney tab, but then there's these other tabs. You see what I'm saying?
I get it.
So officially speaking, Star Wars still has its own tab. It's not officially Disney. See what I'm saying? Right. So even within their Disney Plus system, I'm just curious why they went with the Star Wars tab when the marketing said Lucasfilm and the company is Lucasfilm, right? The
right.
company is a subsidiary of Disney, but it's a separate studio, quote unquote.
And I think, and to be honest, I think it goes back to the fact that there is content that's under the Lucasfilm banner that they probably don't have yet. They don't have the full rights to.
They don't have Indiana Jones?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some kind of something that has Indiana Jones tied up somewhere. And that's why Indy and the Indiana Jones, the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, all that stuff is not on Disney Plus.
But it is on Netflix, isn't it?
Right. And I think that's the deal. I think Netflix, for example, like Netflix has the rights to Last Jedi. So I don't know. It's weird. I don't understand how they sign these deals that have such weird specific things tied up. Like, oh, we got the rights to everything but this movie. So that's kind of weird. I don't understand how you negotiate that deal. But anyhow, I know that Indiana Jones is not really on Disney Plus yet because there's some rights issues and some of that content is tied up. But, go ahead.
I said, that's interesting.
Yeah. And so once that for example, some people at work, at my day job, and most people know I have a day job in addition to drawing comics and stuff. At my current day job, the guy who owns the company is a big fan of the movie Cool Runnings, and he's always referencing it. He references it quite a bit, kind of like how I reference Roadhouse when we're discussing how to handle something in the shop. I always go back to the rules of Roadhouse. Never start anything inside the bar. Always take it outside. All that kind of stuff. I always quote Roadhouse when we're having issues with stuff because it feels like that's the best way to handle it. He's always referencing Cool Runnings, and Cool Runnings is a classic Disney movie that's actually beloved by a lot of people. You cannot watch Cool Runnings right now on Disney Plus because the rights are tied up and it won't arrive until sometime in January of 2020. That's clearly a Disney movie. Right. And someone thought enough of Cool Runnings to tie it up. So it's not on Disney Plus yet. So eventually a lot of this, their content, like I said, as these contracts roll out, the content's going to grow. I feel like for an initial launch, especially when you consider that a lot of us right now are being able to take advantage of a free trial, I think it's pretty decent. in my opinion. I've been, like I said, I haven't had a lot of the issues that you had with streaming and watching the content. I've just been able to watch it and enjoy it, and I've been very pleased with what I've seen.
How do you watch it? What device are you using?
Well, I've been watching it two different ways. One of them is on my Samsung Galaxy phone. I would tell you what version it is, but I can never remember. But I've been watching it on my phone, and then we have on our Samsung smart television. There's that. So I'm able to watch it on that as well through the regular TV interface. I was able to download the app, you know what I mean, and watch it through that.
All right. Are we okay?
Yeah, I had another slowdown. We have a comment on Facebook.
Yeah, I was trying to respond to that comment as well, because we are getting ready to talk about the Mandalorian.
Yeah. That's Stephen Reed. He's a big friend of the show, and Stephen Reed has actually been on the Retro Retrospective. He co-hosted on, we did Tarzan, the Filmation Tarzan. We did Brave Star, and we did Flash Gordon, both the Filmation television series and also the film, which that Flash Gordon. Now, there's a piece of content I wish one of these streaming services would get the rights to and preserve. That Flash Gordon animated film that Filmation did is fantastic. It is probably I love the Sam Jones, live action movie, but that animated film that Filmation did is amazing, and it should be preserved, and it should be on a service where people can discover and watch it, because that animated film is amazing.
Yeah, I remember it as well, but I only saw it as a kid, so it's kind of one of those buried memories,
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, overall, like I am excited about where Disney Plus is going. I will mention that I was a little disappointed about some of the classic cartoons that don't seem to be there, because there's a huge number of classic Disney cartoons. Old Goofy, Donald Duck, all that kind of stuff. It's just not there. Ironically, they came out the day after Veterans Day, and I would love to see some of those old propaganda films, like Donald Duck joining the army and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's not there. I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Like that stuff should be there. This is Disney Plus. This is supposed to be the source of Disney material, and it's not there. So I wonder sometimes if it's a political decision. Obviously, Song of the South isn't there for political reasons, right?
Right.
And that's a movie that I remember fondly as a child. I'd actually be interested to see it as an adult, and I am an adult, so I think I should be able to watch it and make up my own mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
So things like that they I won't say it necessarily irks me. Like I understand some of it, but some of it I don't. Like to me, it would be a no-brainer to put all the Disney Goes to War stuff, put it on there. They came out the day after Veterans Day. Why is that content available? Why not even in a special tab? Just so people can see all that stuff, because it actually has historic value. So I would love to see more of that stuff, and I question why I'm not.
Right. So is that good for the Streaming Wars segment? Do we want to go ahead and start talking about the Mandalorian?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Cool. All right. So we're going to start talking about the Mandalorian here. There will probably be some. Do we want to try and keep it spoiler free at first, and then get into spoilers as we move on, or we just want to go?
I actually think we can talk quite a bit about it before we get into big spoiler territory. Because I think there's a lot we can talk about, because that's one of the interesting things about this show in my mind is that I don't think there are that many big spoilers in it. I think it's pretty straightforward. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, there's a big spoiler at the end. There's a huge big spoiler at the end that yes, if we talk about it, that will definitely that could definitely affect the audience's perception of the show because they didn't get surprised the way we did, you know. And it was a surprise to
Right.
me. I didn't see that coming. I hadn't heard a leak on anything like that. So I I didn't know that was coming. So, but otherwise, I think most of the episode is pretty straightforward. I think you can almost go through it play by play, and you're not really revealing anything because this is very much a setup episode, right?
Right.
It's very much a first episode. It's very much a pilot, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The Yeah, we could totally talk about a lot of spoil without getting into a lot of spoilers. Um,
Well, let's
I
talk
guess
about the overall impression. Like, what's your kind of your overall impression of the Mandalorian? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let's start there.
I liked it. For overall, I liked it. The I honestly I enjoyed it. I think it has a lot of potential. I have watched shows with a much rockier rough start. It wasn't, in some ways it was what I was expecting, and in some ways it wasn't what I was expecting. And as we get further into it, I can talk more about the parts where it didn't, it wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. But overall, I quite enjoyed it, and I'm excited and looking forward to seeing what else they're going to do with it. What were your overall initial impressions?
Well, I found it to be uneven, and the standard that I look at this show is, to me, it is the reason I got Disney Plus. I mean, it's the reason I got Disney Plus because you and I talked about reviewing it, and we wanted to watch the show, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get it because I want to see this show, and you know, like I said before, I'm in that 7-day trial window like everybody else, and to me, what these episodes need to do is they need to make me decide not to cancel my subscription when I have to start paying for it. And
Right.
that's the standard that I go by. And I would say if I had to make that decision right now, I probably would cancel my subscription. Not because I hated it, but because it didn't grab me enough that I want to pay for this. You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
I mentioned earlier, I'm glad that my free trial, and I'm glad that Disney did this, and maybe Disney knew this, you know, give them some credit because I mean, they've got amazing marketing people, right? Maybe in a way they kind of understand this because it's interesting to me that the first episode came out on Tuesday, but all the subsequent episodes are going to come out on Fridays. So anybody who's wanting to watch this, it's going to be coming out every Friday, right? So if you're talking about that free trial, I'm going to be able to see another episode with my free trial. So I in some ways I wonder if that was intended, because there's obviously people that are hooked right now. I've seen some glowing reviews of The Mandalorian from people that I respect and things like that. Nerdrotic gave it an 8 out of 10. He loved it, you know.
Wow.
So it's interesting to me because there are people that are already, it seems, pretty highly invested, or at least saying, "Hey, that was a really good first episode." But to me, it would not have made me fork my money. I would not, if that was all I could see, and that was my decision, you know, to keep the service or not. I don't think I would keep the service. It just didn't grab me enough, and I will say, the beginning was really uneven to me because I think everybody saw that scene already in the bar because they showed it on Monday Night Football, right? The bar fight.
Right. And that clip was made available on YouTube as well.
So most people that are interested in the show have seen that, and that happens almost immediately. It's one of the very first scenes of the show. But what happens is like the stuff afterwards, and also the mark he's going after, the bounty that he's getting, that character. Um, there was this sort of like, to me, there was this sort of weird like Marvel movie type humor that I don't really like for Star Wars, and it really threw me off. And I just didn't like it, and it kind of just threw me off about what I was seeing and what I just saw, because the fight is obviously a really it's a cool fight. You know, it's a cool classic straight up bar fight. You know, hey, you spilled my drink, right? Heard
Right.
that a million times. A lot of people are comparing The Mandalorian to a classic Western, and it very much has a classic Western feel. And it uses classic Western scenarios, you know, setups very effectively, I think, too. But it's like, so we see this really kind of dramatic and cool fight that I enjoyed, and then all of a sudden, like dealing with the bounty, and then dealing with when they basically essentially they have to take like a taxi, and you know, to get to their ship, and all that stuff to me was just, it really kind of just threw me off, and I felt like it was Marvel movie humor in a Star Wars thing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it, but I mean, you have a point. I mean, for example, I think the thing that threw me off was which I don't know if we're getting this. I don't know if this is a spoiler anyone would care about or not, but this is potentially a spoiler. The thing that threw me off was when they had to train to ride the creature later on, and
when they had to when they had to train.
I remember he was like he ran into the little alien guy that we thought was going to be a sidekick from the beginning. Because as we get into this, let me put up right now. All of my assumptions and ideas and what I thought was going to happen in this show, all of it was wrong. All of it was wrong. I now know this guy is most definitely not Boba Fett. You know, the stuff where I thought he was going to be hunting down like ex-imperial officers and stuff, kind of like how they were hunting down like Nazis after the fall, after the end of World War II. In the fall of the Empire, he was going to be running around like rounding these guys up, you know, for war crimes trials and all that kind of fun stuff. I thought they were going to do. They're not doing any of that. They're not doing any of that. I feel like your prerequisite for this is you need to go back and watch the Clone Wars, because all that stuff with the Mandalorians, all that stuff's going to play a big role. And that's what because to me, that humor didn't feel off because it's all coming out of that. You know, it's this, you know, kind of that, you know, because it sort of reminds you of it. This was very much a Clone Wars live action show. That's what this was.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of people have been saying that. Nerdrotic mentioned that he felt that, and remember, he gave it an 8 out of 10. Nerdrotic said that he felt it was like a cartoon episode, like he was watching a live action cartoon.
Yeah, that's exactly. And for me, that's not bad. You know, I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's not, because for those people who may be watching right now, if you didn't see the last live episode, what I was hoping for and expecting is I was personally, I had kind of hoped that what they were going to do is they were going to call back to some of the things that Star Wars inspired, and in a weird way, kind of bring it kind of full circle and kind of not homage, but just kind of bring that stuff into the larger Star Wars universe, you know, and I was kind of hoping that what we were going to get is what the Mandalorian's objective was going to be. As I mentioned before, I was hoping that what he was going to be doing is basically running down Imperial officers for war crimes, you know, and it was going to be a little, because at the end of the day, I'm always kind of hoping, and I mentioned at the beginning of this show after watching Midway, and I really think this is what I'm personally pushing up against. I'm always really hoping that they're going to take a little bit more inspiration from World War II movies. Um, they're leaning heavily in this particular episode on westerns, and I know there's going to be a lot of western stuff because they keep talking about the man with no name, and they're obviously going to do that, and that's great, and that's wonderful stuff. I love a good western. One of my favorite westerns of all time is Pale Rider. So I mean, I get it, that's great stuff. But I'm always kind of hoping Star Wars would lean into some World War II stuff a little bit more. And it seems like that's the stuff they keep going further and further away from. And so I was really hoping that's what he was going to be doing. But instead, he's being employed in this particular episode, which again, well, we're trying to avoid spoilers, so I won't get into that. But anyhow,
well, we don't really know who he's employed by. I mean, like for instance, I think that your interpretation, it could still be on the board. In fact, Nerdrotic said in his review that he thought maybe the stormtroopers are mercenaries. Did you hear that?
And I mentioned that before that but again, what I thought was going to happen in that scene is that, that they're not stormtroopers, that they are just wearing the stormtrooper armor. But I don't think that's it. I don't think it's that deep. I don't think it's going to be that kind of a twist or reveal. I mean, if they do this in the show, I will be shocked, and I will admit on the next episode that I was horribly, horribly wrong. But I'm pretty sure those are just stormtroopers. That the guy he's working for, the big mark, the big bounty he's going after, that guy is an imperial governor of some kind, and just they're on the outer reaches where they still have some control because the fall hasn't really impacted them on the level that everyone else has, So that's what I think. I think they're just regular stormtroopers because I had been hoping that they were.
I think that too, but I just wanted to point out that watching Nerdrotic's review, that he actually thought that they might be just mercenaries, and that character, he didn't really get into his opinion on who that character was, but the implication being that he could just be a criminal figure and not necessarily an Imperial. I think he is an Imperial, but I'm just saying that there is some speculation out there that he isn't.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to go there. I really don't. After watching this episode, and again, I like this episode. I'm looking forward to the rest of the show, and I think this is some fun Star Wars. Like for me, this is more akin to the kind of stuff I was hoping that I was going to see in like some of the movies and stuff. And so I really enjoyed this. So I'm not hating on it at all. I'm just saying all of my ideas that I put forth in the last episode, I'm pretty sure none of those are going to come to pass. I think those are just stormtroopers and they need to clean their armor. I think that guy's an imperial governor of some kind, and he's basically just, doing a job for, basically the last vestiges of the Empire. I think something's going to happen to turn him against, which is a Mandalorian. He already should hate the Empire, but I think that's all it's going to be. I mean, I don't think there's going to be these really interesting deep dive twists, where they're looking at like World War II thrillers and pulling some interesting ideas from those and sprinkling them in the show. I think this is pretty much just a live action Clone Wars show, which it'll still be good, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah, no, I hear that. So we can get more into a spoiler territory now for anybody that's would be listening to the podcast or whatever. We can kind of do more of a deep dive at this point, since we've kind of put our overall impressions out there. So let's break down the story. So we start out obviously where that go. We had a hiccup there, so I'm going to restart. Yeah. So in the beginning of the show, the Mandalorian is obviously going after a mark, and he gets into the bar fight that I think everybody has seen. Right off the bat, remember I talked about this on the trailer. He ends up on the ship, and we end up seeing the carbonite. That is a lore problem to me. It wouldn't be a lore problem if your original theory is correct, that this is in fact Boba Fett, which there's evidence that it's not. To me, it's like they're kind of implying that this is something that like Mandalorians do or bounty hunters do, and it's just not the case. It was like a one-time deal that Boba Fett did for a plan that was actually meant to capture Luke Skywalker. You know,
Right. And
Han Solo was just a test subject. So right off the bat, I feel like that was just fan service. You know, I don't feel like that really makes sense for the lore of Star Wars.
No, and I agree. Because that was one of the things that, unfortunately, when I saw that, I was a little saddened, because I had hoped that it was the way it was going to be worked in was that the little alien guy that Nick Nolte does the voice for, which I quite like that character, by the way, the Nick Nolte little guy who looked like one of the dudes from the Cloud City that was actually running the freezing chambers. You know,
okay, yeah.
I mean, I honestly thought from the trailer that maybe that guy was like his sidekick. You know, if you look at him, his, you know, Don Quixote and Pancho or whatever, you know, like I thought that was his sidekick, you know.
That's what I thought. And we even came up with this idea that maybe he's the one who, because he was actually one of the guys from Cloud City, not just the species, but he was literally one of the technicians on Cloud City. And he had possibly told him about this method that, hey, you know, one time we did this, you know, and so he learned about it. But that's obviously not the case.
And maybe he was the technician who would do it. You know, the Mandalorian would bring the guy on the ship and shove him in the chamber, and he was the one who would actually operate it and make sure the guy was frozen, but he didn't die, you know, and he might have been, you know, the one who would unload and offload them and help, you know, defrost them if the client wanted them, you know, out of the carbonite. Like, I mean, I really thought that's what it was. And that's what I'm talking about. None of my ideas are going to play out in this. I don't think we're going to see battle droids running around as if they're Cylons calling back to Battlestar. Like, I don't think they're going to take all the things that inspired Star Wars and, you know, that were inspired by Star Wars and find a fun way to fold them into this. This is just a Clone Wars show. But
well, interesting. One thing that they did establish is that the Mandalorian doesn't like droids, right? So there's going to be some sort of recurring theme about him not liking droids, right?
Right, and I get that, but again, to me, that like you said is just, no one take me to too much task over this, but I think it's true. That is just another form of fan service, because even after having seen the prequels, I still don't quite get the hatred for droids. So I still don't get that. So he's just saying that because mercenary characters on the down low never like droids.
Well, there is interesting droid in this, of course. That's obviously a callback to IG-88. Much as I've said before, just as I don't see why this isn't about Boba Fett. Okay, I'd really like an answer to that question, and I don't think there's been an official one out there. To me, this should be Boba Fett, and to me, that should have been IG-88. I feel like when you're kind of, you know, what's the word I want to use? When you are using other people's source material, there's a good way to do it, and there's a bad way to do it. To me, the bad way of doing it is when it's just fan service, and it's just, you're kind of just taking like bits and pieces of what you think is the cool thing or whatever, but you're not willing to actually just go there and say that. To me, if that had actually been IG-88, that would have been really awesome. I wouldn't have necessarily been thrilled with what happens to him, but at least it would have been cool that was IG-88. I don't understand. I think, how does he refer to him too? Doesn't he refer to him as like a bounty droid or something like that? And it's like, that's not what IG-88 is. IG-88 was an assassin droid, who supposedly killed. Now, granted, this is EU stuff, I guess. But the idea of IG-88 was that he was an assassin droid who basically killed his makers. And I always thought that was such a cool backstory for IG-88. Now they're just saying these droids were specifically made for bounty hunting. And again, these are the kind of things where this is the stuff that irritates me, because I'm into the lore, I'm into the world building, and I'm just like, that's silly. You know what I mean? I think that's silly. the original story was so much better, and the idea that IG-88 was a kind of a unique thing. Now it's just like, oh, well, these are just they're bounty hunter droids, and we can bring one of these in anytime we want. There was nothing special about IG-88. He was just another bounty hunter droid.
Right.
And that kind of stuff is like, what? That doesn't expand the world. That doesn't build the world of Star Wars to me. That's just like, it's fan service. It's just like, oh, now we can bring one of these IG-88 type droids anytime we want, and yay, nostalgia, and it, I don't know, that kind of stuff I don't like. Now, the Mandalorians obviously were always intended to be a race from the beginning. I remember even as a kid reading like magazines and stuff that would delve into this stuff and said the Mandalorians were supposedly a race that fought the Jedi during the Clone Wars. Now, the actual Clone Wars cartoon kind of got away from that a little bit, I guess. There's a lot of people I know, a lot of EU, expanded universe people that don't really like what the Clone Wars did with the Mandalorians.
Right.
But the original idea was always that they were a race, at least. How they were. Boba Fett's not unique in that respect. So, showing another Mandalorian is cool, but I just question, why isn't it Boba Fett? To me, it seems like it would be so cool if it was Boba Fett, because he's got all the Boba Fett trappings. I mean, he's got all the Boba Fett stuff, right? He's got the ropes, he's got the flamethrower. You know what I mean? Obviously, he's got the very similar armor. It just irks me. It's like, why not just go there? Why not just make him Boba Fett? And why not just have IG-88?
No, I agree. I don't understand why it can't just be, Boba Fett. But I also think too, I have a strong feeling that this is probably this is obviously the Star Wars show, I think, that they were developing at Lucasfilm, where they commissioned all. Did you ever hear about any of that? Where they commissioned all these scripts? They were going to do a TV show, a live action show a while back. Lucasfilm.
Yeah, I remember that. But when Lucas was still in charge of Lucasfilm, yeah, there was all this talk about a Star Wars TV series. I remember that.
Right, and this totally fits everything they were talking about. They said that it was going to be like, you're going to follow kind of mercenary characters. It was all going to be about the underside. It wasn't really going to focus on the Imperials or the Rebels. It was just going to show you a different side or a different aspect of what it was like in the Star Wars universe. And I'd heard all kinds of rumors that it was going to star Boba Fett. And then at one point, it was just going to be turned into a film, and they were just going to take the better of the content. And that's the film that Josh Trank was supposedly going to do. And I just have a feeling that all of this, The Mandalorian, this whole thing, is all that stuff that was developed to be a part of that. And they've just made it a Disney Plus show instead. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad or anything. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to watching more of it. But I do think that that this is that content that was developed at that time. And there are a lot of things about this that I think are missed opportunities. Like, for example, why can't that be IG-88? I mean, I think that would be more fun. Even if this isn't Boba Fett, at least it's a character we kind of know a little bit about. And then when we see him doing all the cool stuff, it's like, oh, that's cool. This is IG-88. This is what they were talking about. This is fun, and it kind of, gives that character, more resonance, and makes them a little bit more important in the fans' eyes, and helps you understand.
Because literally, the way that it actually happens, he's literally just a throwaway character.
Yeah. Now there is some rumors that the Mandalorian or someone's going to repair him, and he'll be back, and he will kind of become the Mandalorian's sidekick. We'll see.
That would be interesting. I mean, be more interesting to me if he was IG-88. Then I would really like that, But
I mean, then at least if they do that, then it makes sense why it can't be IG-88, right? If they do that. Now, if they don't do that, and this character doesn't come back, and this is the end, the character gets shot and we never see him again, then, you know, then I guess maybe it couldn't have been IG-88 because maybe that's bad fan service. You can't show how cool he is and then kill him like he's nothing. You know, people that like the character original, you know, trilogy, you know, fans would be enraged. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think it should have been IG-88. But if he does come back and he's a sidekick kind of character and he kind of recurs throughout the course of the series, then I think that's part of the reason why it couldn't be IG-88. But if they don't do that, I don't know why it couldn't have been. You know what I mean? It's like, why not make it IG-88?
What did you think of the self-destruct thing, that little gag?
It was kind of funny the first couple of times, but then it got kind of old. That wasn't something I was a huge fan of, because he just kept bringing it up over and over and over again. And I wish there had been a different way they could have done it, where maybe he had started it, and maybe there was a countdown, and every time he would deactivate it, the countdown would speed up, and then he would it's like a sound cue as opposed to him saying over and over again. It was kind of funny the first couple of times, and then there towards the end, I just felt like it was getting kind of annoying.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was talking about some of the unevenness of the show. Like I said, it reminds me a lot of Marvel movies, because Marvel movies have a lot of cheesy humor, really cheesy humor. And I've always thought that humor in Star Wars was like, it's kind of like a fun gift. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of humor in Star Wars, but it's not a funny show. You know what I mean? So it's sometimes that kind of pulls me out of it a little bit, because like you said, in that particular scene, it's like, if you did the gag like once or twice, okay, it's funny, haha, let's move on. You keep doing it, it's like it kind of takes away from the gravity of the scene, because they're in this big shootout, and it's dramatic. And personally, I like the way that that IG unit fights. I thought it was really cool. I think that's the whole 360 degree way that he fights, because he's a droid, and the fact his head spins like that. I love that. I think that was really cool. But it's like, why take such a dramatic scene like that and then kind of make it cheesy? See what I'm saying? Just with the kind of unevenness.
Right, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. I mean, to me, it just feels like it was a Clone Wars episode, And like I said, it doesn't make it bad. It's just not what I was expecting. I thought it was going to have a little, because it has tinges of some, like that first scene in the bar where he shoots that door and that door cuts that dude in half.
Exactly.
Like, wow. Okay, we're going to go there. This is pretty cool. I thought it was going to be a real, very much like one of those Clint Eastwood, Sergio Leone spaghetti western kind of things. Oh, this will be cool, But or Outlaw Josie Wales kind of thing. But it's just not quite there. But then again, like I said, this is an early episode. Maybe by the time we get 5 episodes in, we'll be down with it. Because I don't want to be too super critical of it, because any show, they normally don't really get their footing until like season 2 or season 3 anyway. But I'm
not sure if I always agree with that argument. I think people, they use that a lot because of Star Trek: The Next Generation. But like for me, I mean, I liked Encounter at Farpoint, and the pilot hooked me from the beginning. And I liked the characters from the beginning, and the characters really didn't change all that much throughout the rest of the show. The situations they were in and things like that, I think it got better, especially by season 3. But the core of the show was there. You know what I mean? It was there in the pilot. And so I don't know if that's the case with this show. Now this is a different kind of show. This isn't really, as far as I can tell, it's not really an ensemble piece. It seems to me that the Mandalorian is going to kind of drift through different characters, and there's certain characters we're definitely going to see again. For instance, gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name. The guy from Rocky.
Oh, you're talking about Carl Weathers.
Yeah, Carl Weathers. So I mean, I'm sure we'll see him again. He seems to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
the head of the Bounty Hunters Guild. Is my guess. And I do think it's interesting that he seems to be part of two different but sort of convergent societies, because it seemed like there's the Bounty Hunters Guild, which includes droids like the IG unit, and includes Carl Weathers' character, who I thought was going to be a Mandalorian, and clearly he's not. And then you have the actual Mandalorian tribe that he also visits. You know what I mean? So he's connected to both, which I do think that's interesting. So it's like, well, could that play into things later? Could there be some issues of allegiance problems? The guild wanting you to do one thing, the Mandalorians wanting you to do something else, because clearly they have different goals. Obviously, the guild is clearly, it's based on money, and they're trying to make money on their bounties. Whereas we don't really know what the Mandalorian clan is really all about yet, and
right.
what their aims are. We assume, at least I would assume on the little knowledge I have, that they want to get their planet back, right?
Right.
Because the Empire's gone now, so in theory they should be able to go back to their planet and all that kind of stuff, and sort of reassert themselves on their world, because I don't think the world they were on clearly wasn't the Mandalorian homeworld. One thing that I did find confusing is sometimes is like they don't give you a very good indication of where you're at, like which planets. Like they don't name them or anything. Like I kind of like that in Rogue One they would name the new planets, so we knew where we were. Like for instance, I thought that the Guild planet, the planet where the Guild is at and the Mandalorians are at, to me it was like, is that Tatooine? Because I swear I saw a Jawa. Did you see a Jawa?
I don't remember seeing a Jawa, but I'd also heard this supposedly is like towards the outer rim or whatever. So I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't have any idea where it is at all. I mean, I was, if you were to tell me, what planet or what side of space they're in, I have no idea.
And I guess some people think it's the Galaxy's Edge place.
Yeah, I could see that. If they're trying to promote and sell that, it should be.
But why not say that?
Well, maybe they're not sure if they want to yet or not. Still on the fence.
I was very confused about the planets sometimes, about where they were. But I'm just saying that I think obviously those Mandalorians, the Mandalorian clan that he belongs to, that's not their world. So the question becomes, why aren't they going back to their world when the Empire's fallen? I think that's a legitimate question.
Right. Well, again, they could have set it up that he was collecting these bounties to potentially, maybe well, see, that's the thing. It all goes back to motivation of the character. So yeah, he's just a dude trying to survive in space. I mean, because that's the thing. It's like, because in the back of my head, I had worked up all these different scenarios, about what this character was doing and what his ultimate aim and goal was going to be, and I realize now none of that's going to come to pass. It's just a dude trying to make his way. So
you don't think the Mandalorians as sort of as a race and a clan is going to become relevant? That's going to be something that I think and some conflict with him, because it does seem to me like he has more than one allegiance.
Right. I think it'll come into play, in the story. But in my head, I built up this whole thing where, he was, basically doing these jobs in order to collect money so that he could buy a stash of arms. You know what I mean? And then he was going to get together with these other Mandalorian, commandos, and then they were going to go and take their planet back while the Empire was on its knees. They were going to take advantage of this opportunity, and he was using his bounty hunting activities and the favors he was earning by bringing in these, Imperial, war criminals, you know what I mean, to help bolster his case. And then he was going to help assemble a group, and they were going to go back to Mandalore, and they were going to take the planet back from the Imperials that were still on the planet. None of that. I don't think any of that's going to come to pass. He's
Really?
just, yeah, he's just a
I could
dude.
kind of see that scenario, though. I could kind of see that, you know, because remember what does he do with his payment? Right? He takes his payment and he actually has it melted down by what I assume is the leader of the clan, the blacksmith, who's a female Mandalorian, and she makes him a piece of armor, right?
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. So because it's like that's not like your kind of standard like credits or whatever kind of idea. It's like no, this is
Right.
something very like this is important to him and it's important to his clan. You know what I mean? And obviously it's practical. It's a piece of armor, but it's also just a very small piece of armor. So I found that interesting that's what he does with his payment that we were led to believe is very valuable, that the Imperials pillaged this stuff from the Mandalorians, and that it's very, very valuable because it's obviously it's armor that actually can deflect, that actually works, that can actually deflect blaster bolts, because so much of the armor in Star Wars doesn't work. It's kind of useless. It's just there for aesthetics, So apparently the Mandalorian armor using this particular metal, which do you know much about that? Do you know much about that metal?
No, I do not. That's the first time I was really made aware of it was in the show. But they make a big deal out of it too, because when he's in that bar scene in the beginning, whatever makes a comment about, hey, is that such and such kind of steel? So
right.
I mean, we'll see. It's just that at the moment I don't see where he is collecting all the money from these bounties to, buy a huge stash of weapons to go back and take back Mandalore. I just get the feeling he's just trying to make his way. So
that's interesting. Well, then let's go to the big reveal. So then, if that's the case, why did he shoot the IG unit and save the baby Yoda?
That's an interesting question for which I have no answer whatsoever.
Because he was told the preference was to bring it alive, but he didn't have to do that, right? That when he got the commission, he was told, we would prefer to have this mark alive. We would prefer to have them alive, but if you have to kill them, we just need to have proof that you killed them.
Right.
So when the IG unit says, well, my orders are to kill it. So, right. Which also makes you wonder, so who hired the IG unit, right?
Right.
So was it the same person? Was it someone else? That's kind of an intriguing question right there. So, right. But ultimately it's like, so if he's just kind of like this guy, like you say, that's kind of just trying to make his way with no real other agenda, why not just kill the baby and split the bounty with the IG unit and go along his way?
Well, because during the Clone Wars, his family was murdered and he was an orphan child and he knows what that's like. And he just can't kill this poor kid when he sees in this kid who he was when he was lost and afraid. Right?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, we did get the flashback, which that was interesting to figure out what that scene was. I didn't realize that was him, because we thought that was like a child because in the trailer we were led to believe that like this child was like maybe like reaching out to the Mandalorian. It's like, no, that child is the Mandalorian when his family was wiped out. That was one thing that I mentioned was when I was looking at the robes, I was like, are those Mandalorian robes? Because I don't know enough about them and I haven't watched enough Clone Wars to see is that like the clothes that the civilians wear or something like that? And apparently it was. That's what Mandalorian civilians wear when they're not in their armor. That's my guess. So unless he's adopted, like the clan, theoretically, I guess the clan could have adopted him. We don't know. I assume though that he was there when the Empire took over Mandalore, which is that what their home planet's called, Mandalore?
Yeah.
Okay, so I assume that he was there when the Imperials came and they killed his parents, and like you said, he became an orphan and all that kind of stuff. And so I guess that scenario makes sense. It's I kind of wanted something deeper than that, I guess. you know, but
And see, that kind of goes back to what I was saying. That's what I was hoping. I was hoping that it was going to be a little bit more of an interesting deep dive, and they were going to be cherry picking out of, kind of the EU, stuff, and they were going to do something, and the show could still be good, and they still could do some interesting stuff with it. But I now realize that what I was kind of thinking of and hoping for, that's not going to be what comes to pass in this show. I really, honestly, after having watched this first episode, really feel like that basically what this is basically a Clone Wars live action show. That's basically what it is. And that doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It'll be quite good. There's like several episodes, quite a few episodes actually of Clone Wars I really, really liked. So I don't mean that as a harsh negative judgment. I'm just saying after watching it, I realized that those things they showed us in the trailer are not harbingers of really cool things to come. It is just fan service to get you excited for the show. That's what it is, and all this stuff. I was reading into it, looking at the ships and stuff, going, "Oh, this is kind of cool. They're going to harken back to this, and I wonder if they might do that." None of that stuff's going to come to pass because no one's thinking like that. That's just me. That's me projecting onto it what I want to see.
So you're saying, okay, you don't think it's going to go there. Where do you think it is going then? So what is the significance of this Yoda child? Which, by the way, that's another lore thing I don't really like. The idea that the reason that Yoda is so old is because he was a baby for his first 50 years of his life. I've never heard that idea before. I think it's silly. The idea that a species would be a helpless baby for 50 plus years, because it's still a baby. So as far as we know, it could still be a baby for the next 50 years. The idea that a species would evolve that way doesn't make any sense to me. I think that was really weird. And Yoda is such an important character and such a beloved character. A lot of the mystery about his race is really kind of part of the fun. If they get too deep into this and start to get into, I guess, Yoda's race and all that kind of stuff, I'm not sure I'm going to be happy with where they go with that.
Well, all I'm going to say is that I think that I don't think there's going to be a lot of these fun, interesting deep dives. I mean, I really think this is just a live action Clone Wars show. In terms of what the significance of the child is going to have, somehow the child will be related to Yoda. And I think that'll be it. I really, honestly, I don't think, because...
Do you think this could be Yoda's child?
I mean, no, because that goes against everything that Yoda talked about attachment. So I don't think so.
Do you think they care?
I think we know the answer to that question.
That I get really frustrated about, because I could see them just being like, who cares? We don't like the prequels anyway. So let's just have this be Yoda's kid.
Well, and see, for me, it's like when I saw that, I was like, oh, I wonder if they're going to do like a lone wolf and cub thing, but I don't think they're going to do that. It's along the same lines of when they showed like, what's the name of the little creature that hung out with Jabba the Hutt, and then we see his species being cooked, right?
Yeah.
Now, see me, if I do that in a show, that's going to eventually pay off, and what we're going to do is we're going to use that as a way to talk about, the horror of the dog meat markets that they do in certain countries. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to use that to talk about something, right?
By the way, that is other evidence that could have been Tatooine that he was on. Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, if I show you that, I have plans for it. It's not just like, hey, that guy that hung out with Jabba the Hutt that was a little annoying. Yeah, they eat him on this planet, like, and to me, I think that's all that was. I don't think there's any more significance to it. So
no, there's a ton of fan service in this show, a ton of it.
Yeah,
but I don't mean it in a good way. To me, it's like you said. I feel like if you're going to do these callbacks, there should be some purpose to it. I think I've told you before, I'm so incensed what they did to Akbar, because Akbar was just window dressing. He was a radio technician. I mean, he was nothing.
Right.
He was less than nothing, and then they just killed him like nothing, And I hate that kind of stuff. It's because I'm so much into the lore, because I'm so much into the world building. I just don't understand why they do things like that. I mean, I guess they think that the average Star Wars fan just can be like, "Oh, cool, that was like you said, the annoying guy from Jabba's palace, and they're eating him. Oh, cool,
Yeah, and that, unfortunately, I think is probably the depth of what they're going to do. And like I said, it doesn't mean that it's bad. I mean, it's like, oh, hey, check that out, But I don't think that they have plans to really do anything more with it. I mean, and I guess for me too is that I have been rewatching the Orville. Okay, so we have to take my reactions of the Mandalorian with a little bit of grain of salt, because the Orville is constantly talking about and tackling issues like real world concerns. Like every single episode is entertaining and fun, and it makes you laugh, and it's I've been shocked at how good the Orville is, revisiting it. At least for me anyway. I can't speak for everyone, but for me, I've been, because I liked it, but it's interesting because I watched a couple of season 2 episodes just to get a sense for the difference between season 2 and season 1. And then I've been working my way through season 1 after doing that. And I'm just amazed. Every episode is an opportunity to tackle something, and they come at all these things head on, and they don't flinch. And it makes me realize that more shows could be doing that. Not to the detriment of the show and being on a soapbox and not making it entertaining, but you could have it pay off in some way, either to the story or to the larger context of Star Wars in general or whatever else. But to me, it's just, he's freezing guys because that's what Boba Fett did, and he looks like Boba Fett. Okay, like I thought his ship might have been inspired by Nell a little bit from Battle Beyond the Stars. No, it's not. They clearly talk about it's like a remnant from probably, the Clone Wars era. And if you look at it, it looks a little bit like the troop transport. Remember the troop transports from Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah.
It just looks a little bit like, because now I look at it and I go, oh, well, it's just like a ship slightly in the model of a troop transport. Okay. I think that's the extent of it. I don't think anyone's looking to, call back to Ralph McQuarrie's, design work or, talk. And by the way, Nell was designed by James Cameron before I confuse that issue and people start screaming at me on the internet. I know the difference. But what I'm talking about is I point out that ship that looked a little bit like Ralph McQuarrie's, one of his original designs for the Vipers from Battlestar Galactica, that they reused as the classic starfighter from Buck Rogers. Like I don't think anyone's looking at stuff going, oh, this would be cool to call back to that. Like, I don't think we're going to get a fun space battle that's kind of wink wink is a fun salute to Buck Rogers. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're going to get that. So I just think it's a Western. That's where they're pulling a lot of their inspiration from. Maybe they went as far back as looking at a little bit of Kurosawa's films, but I don't think they did, because we don't see anyone using sabers anywhere in any of the trailers. So I don't think we're going to get any Force users to any great extent.
Now, why would you say that when clearly this Yoda alien is important?
I'm just saying, I think they're going to take him away and experiment on him. I think he's going to wind up being a lab rat, I think.
Yeah,
and maybe that'll.
But the question becomes to what ultimate end, and who's really pulling the strings and why, right?
Well, I think somehow this is going to tie in to the Emperor somehow, and indirectly or directly lead back into this last Star Wars movie that's getting ready to come out, maybe. But
really? You
Yeah,
think
I
there's
do.
like a direct tie to the what is it, the Rise of Skywalker or whatever?
Yeah, yeah, I think it will be in some way. Um, but I think this is a case of the snake eating its own tail, and beyond pulling in some influences from like classic westerns. I don't think anyone's looking at. I don't think anyone's looking at sci-fi in the broader context to pull inspiration from. I think when they're going, we need a sci-fi idea to plug into this. I think they're just looking at Star Wars. I don't think they're looking at anything beyond Star Wars to add to what's there.
Well, clearly, this is a lot of this though uses the Western tropes. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
So
but that's what I'm
it's
saying.
riddled with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think they're pulling some inspiration from classic westerns, but what I'm saying is beyond that. This is just the snake eating its own tail. So take with that what you will. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to watching more of it. But I just all these fun things I built up in my head, like they were going to go back and look at some of those cool World War II war movies and pick out some fun ideas to play with, or they're going to look at some Kurosawa films and give us a really unique, fun kind of Jedi character in a couple episodes. Like all these things in my head that I built up that I hope this show is going to do. It's going to do none of that. It's going to be a very entertaining live action Clone Wars show. I think that's what it's going to be. It doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It just means all these things I had in my head I thought they were going to do. I don't think they're going to do any of that, especially after watching this episode. I don't see in it. I don't see in it the seeds of these grander ideas. It just looks like a straightforward, entertaining show that's pulling inspiration from westerns. And part of my reasoning for that is the sheer amount of time that we spent with the Mandalorian supposedly learning how to ride this creature. Did we need to spend that much time with that? Like, couldn't the little Nick Nolte guy just been like, we have to ride this so and so to get there, and let's not waste any time, and then you just see them riding out there.
Well, I think that was a dual thing. I think it goes to what I was talking about, the unevenness with the sort of awkward humor, what I think is awkward humor. But then also it's supposed to call back to classic westerns where they had scenes like that where someone had to, break the wild stallion, because that's another,
I know, but
setup that you
the
see
kid,
in these kinds of stories. So,
but see, that story is for a flashback when he's a child, not when he's already the Mandalorian gunning people down in bars. You don't have him learn how to ride a horse when he can already gun people down in bars. You have him learn to ride a horse when he's a kid and he's still learning how to handle a gun if you're going to pull inspiration from westerns. Clint Eastwood's character in all those The Man with No Name movies, or you look at Outlaw Josie Wales, he's already a preformed killer. They don't spend a lot of time like you want to look at the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger did not break silver and turn around and become and fully become the Lone Ranger after he already knew how to do everything else, and was basically already like, this guy's already the Lone Ranger. You can't have him already be the Lone Ranger and then go, oh yeah, you see that horse over there? You need that horse to be part of your thing. You got to go do that. Like, I just like that whole scene right there really bothered me because I just felt like he doesn't know how to ride a horse. Like you're going to give us all this Western iconography and take us down this road, and you're going to say, "Hey, the gunslinger, he can't ride a horse." Because what you could have done is said, the way to do this properly, in my mind, is the little character says, "Do you know how to ride a such and such?" And the Mandalorian drifts off in thought, and then you see him as a little child learning to ride this creature. And the lesson that he takes from that about learning to never give up. Or whatever the moral of the story is. And then you kind of fade back in and he goes, yes, I've been riding them since whatever. Or like, it's like, you're wasting time, let's go. And then you just see them riding the creek. You know what I mean? Like, you don't, it's I don't know. It just struck me as weird.
It's
It's
an
like,
awkward scene. I think it's
yeah,
a totally awkward scene. Again, it goes back to what I was saying. It's the unevenness that has me concerned, and it took me out of things that I really liked. Where there were parts where I was like, "Hey, I'm kind of digging this." I was like, "This is interesting," and then all of a sudden it would be something awkward, and I'd be like, "Okay, you just took me out of that. You just totally took me out of where I was." Um,
yeah, I agree. And like I said, I prefer the version of this story that we came up with in our other episode when we were speculating, where that little guy is one of the little technicians from Cloud City, and they're freezing people in carbonate because it was his idea, and
right.
they're palling around, collecting money and whatever to, to buy something to help them take back Mandalore. Like, that whole idea, and they're collecting money by hunting down Imperial war criminals. Like, this whole thing, it just sounds more interesting to me. But as it is, I mean, like I said, it's a live action Clone Wars show. I liked it. It's fun. I'm excited to see what else they do with it. But
Okay, so coming from that perspective, you said you liked it. So let's play in their sandbox for a second. Where is this going? What's going to happen? What are the predictions? What I kind of got from you was that you think ultimately the Emperor is somehow kind of pulling the strings, and this Yoda creature is simply meant to be experimented on by the Emperor or the Emperor's minions.
yeah, somehow this Yoda-like creature will be used, and they'll find some way to tap into its midichlorian or force abilities or whatever, and it'll be used to amplify the Emperor's powers some sort of way.
So
That's all
you think the Emperor is alive right now?
Yeah, I do, because they have to somehow fill in that the Emperor's been. Look, if Darth Maul can show up in Solo, then the Emperor can be behind the scenes in the Mandalorian manipulating what we're seeing. It just
Now Solo was a huge bomb. You do realize that?
yeah, but Darth Maul played a big role in Clone Wars. Darth Maul showed up in Rebels. So I'm just.
I don't think you can really. I don't think you can really. I don't think you can really compare that though. Like to me, the Mandalorian is almost like this is kind of almost going to make or break Disney Plus. I mean,
Right. So
granted, there's a lot of other cool content on Disney Plus, but the Mandalorian is what all the buzz is about.
Right.
And so,
like I said, well, let me get back. Let me just do my prediction real quick, because I'm not saying it makes a lot of sense. So all I'm saying is somehow this Yoda child may have some significance, and if it does, I think it'll play into somehow something involving the Emperor that'll either be a soft or a direct call to whatever's going to be happening in the last Star Wars movie. Now, what would I personally like to have happen? What I'd personally like to have happen is he just takes the Yoda baby on the road, and this turns into like Lone Wolf and Cub kind of stuff, and we'll lean into some samurai stuff for several episodes. But I don't think that's what they're going to do. I really don't. As far as where the show is headed as a long term, I honestly have no idea. He doesn't really seem to have much of an objective other than he wants to make as much money as he possibly can to help out his clan. They didn't show us any indications that they were collecting and stockpiling these monies to take back their homeworld. I mean, maybe they'll reveal that in a couple of episodes. I mean, they might still try to do that, but I
think that's still on the table. I think that could definitely be a direction that it goes in.
Right. So, but I'm not convinced after watching this episode that they're thinking like that. I mean, I had higher hopes for it before I actually watched it. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed it. I liked it for what it was, but I'm not expecting any of the stuff that I had built up in my mind. I realize how crazy that was now to, have hoped for a lot of that stuff. So what kind of expectations? I mean, what do you think they're going to be doing with this? What do you think's the long reach goal of what they're trying to achieve with Mandalorian? Besides, obviously, making Disney Plus solvent and making some money.
Well, there you go. Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of positive buzz about this show. Like I said, Nerdrotic liked it. He gave it a positive review. So there's a lot of, from every direction, there's a lot of fandom that really like this and they're really into it. I will say, if your scenario is what happens, I'm going to hate it. I'm going to absolutely hate it. I already hate the fact that bringing back the Emperor, because it just makes Return of the Jedi completely irrelevant. It just makes the entire story stupid because it didn't mean anything. They did that with The Force Awakens. That was one of my big issues with The Force Awakens. It's like everybody is back. They're not even back to where they were in Return of the Jedi. Everybody's back to where they were in the original Star Wars in The Force Awakens. So it's like nothing mattered. Like, what was the point of those other movies? Because nothing changed. Han's back to being a smuggler. Princess Leia is, still kind of one of the leaders of the rebellion. And actually, I should say, like, they're worse off than Star Wars because now Luke is a hermit. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want to see a progression of the story. So I guess it kind of goes with what I want to see, because I could totally see them doing what you just said. And I'm just going to say that if that's the case, I'm going to absolutely hate this thing. I'm going to trash it everywhere I possibly can, because that's not what I want to see. What I want to see is that, first of all, I'm just not sure about the Yoda alien. Like I feel like that is going to be a disaster. That is not going to work. Whatever they have planned for that, I don't think it's going to work very well. I think the obvious scenario is what you said, that they want to experiment on him. Obviously, that doctor character or scientist-like character that was involved with hiring the Mandalorian to go after this thing, he wanted the child alive, right? That came through in the scene where they were when they were making the arrangements for the bounty. Right. He wanted him alive. The Imperial, we'll call him the Imperial Governor at this point, although I'm not convinced he's an Imperial Governor. I think he probably is. I'm just saying that there is a door open that he could be something else. And if he is something else, that would be interesting, because then we haven't actually really seen the Imperial faction yet. So that's kind of what I would like to see. I would like to see like that we're dealing with like multiple factions, just like the Mandalorian himself, because I kind of like the idea that he could very easily find himself in a divided loyalty situation. I could see the guild coming after him, for instance. I would like to see that. Now, that would be interesting, don't you think? If the guild went after him, that would be cool.
Yeah. I mean,
for instance, if he decides not to bring the baby, because like you said, the baby reminds him of his own childhood. We went over that. So
right.
let's say the baby does remind him of his own childhood, and that's the motivation for why he killed the IG unit. If that's the case, and he does decide to run off with the child, and maybe go to his clan and say, what do you think we should do? Something like that. That to me could be really interesting. And so then it becomes kind of that classic, that classic setup where now he's got to protect this child, try to figure out why the child's so important. And he again winds up in the middle of all these different factions, because we know that there's another player out here that hired the IG unit. I mean, it's possible that the Imperial Governor character, it's possible that he hired him and just gave him different orders, but I don't think that's the case. I think clearly the IG unit was hired by somebody else. So what I kind of want to see is all these different factions. I want to see like these. I want to see like the Imperial Remnant. I want to see the Crime Lords. I want to see this bounty hunters guild. I want to see the Mandalorians, and the Mandalorian himself, the character, is kind of like caught in the middle of all this stuff, and trying to figure out what is he going to do, which side is he going to side with, and kind of keep that as a little bit of a kind of a mystery where he's ultimately going to go. Although I think ultimately he would stay loyal to his clan. I think that's what would be fun, and that's what I would like to see. Whether they're going to do that or not, I see enough there that they could do something like that, where we're going to see a lot of different players, and it's not just straight up, the Emperor wants them. Again, I would hate that because I just hate that. I hate the fact they're even bringing the Emperor back. It's just desperation in my opinion. But I would like to see these different factions with different motivations going after this child, maybe even for different reasons. And the Mandalorian kind of being at the center of it all and trying to figure out what to do, what ultimately he's going to do with this kid.
Well, we'll see where they go with it. I mean, the only other option I can think of off the top of my head could be the person who hired the IG unit could be, Darth Maul. We know Darth Maul is running around and some. Well,
no,
not at this point. That's way too far. That's way too far out. I take that back.
Darth Maul's dead.
Yeah, because he died in Rebels. That's right.
He's dead.
So I don't know. I mean, because I was just sitting here thinking, it's like maybe somehow this links back to Darth Maul. But if you follow the lessons of modern storytelling, then they need to have an overarching goal, overarching story that leads somewhere, even if the random episodes, don't all immediately head to that conclusion, right? But I don't know. After watching this first episode, I have no idea. I really have no idea. I don't know what the heck they're doing with this. I mean, I don't even have a clue.
And you liked it.
But see, that's the thing. It's like I enjoyed it, but the more I dissect it and think about it, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, because I wonder if like the Yoda baby at the end was just an interesting idea they had, and they don't know what they're going to do with it.
Well, the Yoda baby has to be significant. Come on, that has to be a central part of the story. That's got to be a central part of the story. He's not going to just give the baby back and that's it, and then you go off on another adventure. You see what I'm saying? Like that's not going to happen. I can say that. That's not going to happen.
It could.
It's not. They're not that bad. Come on.
I just had higher hopes for it, and after watching the first one, it's like I'm excited to watch the rest of them because I like science fiction stuff and I like Star Wars. So, I'm excited to see it, but I didn't get any feelings from this first episode that there's this grand plan, what they're going to do and where they're going to go. I don't think that actually exists.
Wow.
I think Yoda baby was just an interesting thing that came out of a story session. They went, and it's a baby Yoda in the thing, and that's what he was after. We have to find a way to pay that off, but that's interesting. Like I think that's basically where that came from.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, I do think the Yoda baby is significant. I think it will be a central part of whatever this journey is for this first season. It may not even be resolved at the end of the first season because I do think he's going to have a lot of adventures on the way, but I do think the overall point of it all is that the baby is important and he's going to do what he can to protect it. And,
Yeah, but at the same point, I'm just going to say it. I don't think, the more I think about it, I don't think this is a lone wolf and cub situation. There's the possibility the next episode he could just hand it over. and
that would be so bad. I mean, that would be like someone who just has no idea what they're doing. You're basically telling me that the writers of this show are like mentally retarded. That's what you're saying right now.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying there's the possibility he could just hand the kid over to the dudes. He gets paid. They decide to jump him to take the money back, and that's why we see him blowing them away in the trailer, right? Because they decide they want their money back, right? And we're watching Rise of Skywalker, and they had little baby Yoda plugged into a wall thing, and Palpatine was feeding off of it like a battery. And that's it. It's like, oh, that's what happened. That's the baby Yoda from the Mandalorian. That's evil, it could be that.
I do think in a lot of ways, and again, this goes back to my lore issues. It's like, just because this thing is a baby Yoda, why that in itself shouldn't be significant. The idea that Yoda's race is like they're all better at the Force than everybody else. No, that's stupid. Because we've been told and shown that basically Jedis are very unique. They're multiple races. There's no one race that is better at the Force than anyone else. It's like basically every race has basically in a generation has one or two people that is really good at this, and that's what's been established in the lore. So to me, I think I'm a little concerned because I feel like they're going to say, well, because he's a Yoda, or she's a Yoda. A lot of people think it's going to be a she, by the way. It's because this baby, it's a baby Yoda. Oh, it's got to have massive Force powers. It's like, no, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. That's why I kind of go back to, oh, this is going to be like Yoda's son or daughter or something like that. Because but then again, obviously, I could very well see that they're saying, oh yeah, so we don't really understand Star Wars, so we're just going to say every single person of Yoda's race is a master at the Force, and therefore that's why they're significant. And like you said, maybe I think there's going to be maybe some issue of mining the midichlorians, although I don't know if they want to get into prequel stuff because they're so anti-prequel at the Disney Wars. But they might get into something like that and say, hey, so we got to mine this child for the midichlorians to bring back the Emperor, something like that. I personally don't really like that because I think it's kind of silly, the idea that it's Yoda's race that makes him powerful. No, it's Yoda that makes him powerful. Yoda's unique. He's a unique individual. It's not the fact that he just comes from a race of good Force users.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, maybe I'll have a better feel for what I think they might be doing after seeing the second episode, but I'm not putting it past this show that he just hands it over and they jump him to take the money back, and that's why we see him fighting those stormtrooper guys in the trailer. And the kid doesn't show back up again until we see him plugged into a wall socket on one of those Star Destroyers at the end of Rise of Skywalker.
And so then in your scenario,
he could be powering that weird mechanized chair that the Emperor may be in the trailer. He could be the battery that's keeping that thing going.
Oh boy!
Little Matrix, in the Star Wars. I don't know. I honestly have no idea. Literally, when I saw that, I was I was confused, and I was going, okay, it's obviously a young baby type child, and obviously it's from Yoda's race of people. And in the back of my head, I'm going, what's the significance of that? And I'm thinking, maybe nothing. Maybe nothing. I mean, because I don't see where you could go with that, because it's not like, he is going to go on adventures and take this kid with him, and then through this kid learn about the Force and start wielding a lightsaber halfway through the show and turn out to be a Jedi. He can't. Force Awakens has already told us that doesn't happen. The Force is dormant, except for whatever Luke is doing when he tries to kill his nephew or whatever. But anyhow, the Force doesn't exist in the sense in which we would kind of need it to for the Yoda baby to have any major significance.
We had a hiccup. We had a hiccup.
Okay. So the only point I was making is just The Force Awakens has shown us that the Force does not exist at this timeline in this show, theoretically, it shouldn't exist in the manner in which something really interesting could come from it.
Point making a new Jedi Academy, and basically the Knights of Ren killed all the students.
Yeah, but I don't think we're gonna see. There's no way we're gonna see Luke running around in this. I mean, he's on the outer reaches. I don't think we're gonna see the Jedi return, and like I just don't think they're gonna do any of that. I think it's a Western. What kind of Western involves a kid? That's what we need to look at. We need to find a Western that involves a gunslinger who finds a young child, which is why I keep coming back to Lone Wolf and Cub, although he didn't find that child, that was his kid. But I can't think of any Westerns where a gunslinger finds a young kid and they somehow pay that off. Well, maybe there's an episode of Bonanza, but anyhow, so that's what I'm saying. Right now, I don't see where the Yoda baby could have a lot of significance because the Force right now is in a place in the storyline based off of what they have shown us in the films and the shows. The Force is in a bad way. So,
but that's not exactly true because, like I said, Luke did try to establish a Jedi Academy. That's even in Disney Wars. So he tried to do an academy, and he had multiple students. And basically, the Knights of Ren, with the help of Kylo Ren, killed them all. So I don't quite agree with that because even by the Disney Wars rules, we can still have people that are Force sensitive. We can have Luke already running around trying to find these people, or we could have an agent of Luke that's going around finding these people. You know, that's one of the things that really irked me that we didn't get to see. Like, I've always wanted to see the new Jedi Academy. I wanted to see, Luke trying to rebuild the Jedi Order. And we know, even in Disney Wars, he tried. He just failed, right? So why couldn't we have a character, that's in line with that? One thing that's interesting to me is we haven't seen any inkling of the Rebellion or the New Republic. Like, there's no New Republic right now, and there's no Rebellion. Like, we have no idea what the state is of the Rebel Alliance. Because the Rebel Alliance should be taking over.
Well, here, let me give you an interesting scenario that I think would have been really cool that they didn't do, because I was trying to imagine based off of what you're saying, right? So for me, what would have been interesting would have been if the IG droid and the Mandalorian, because they're outnumbered, and it looks like they're going to lose the battle. What if they were basically both incapacitated, and it looked like basically this battle was lost, and in the midst of all this chaos, the dudes start getting taken out, and then the Mandalorian's looking around, and all he sees is like glimpses of a cloak here and glimpses of a cloak there, and then this character saves this Yoda child and then just leaves. And we get a little hint of the Luke theme in the background. You know what I mean? Like, there could have been something really interesting they could have done where they could have alluded to this idea and not have to pay it off directly. You know what I mean? And still have this episode have an interesting ending where you go, oh, well, then that's happening. Like, the Jedi Academy must exist. Luke is probably out there somewhere. It just gets weird because it's like there's no way. We know that this scientist guy wants the Yoda baby to experiment on it, right? So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with this. I really have no idea. But I'm not putting it past the show that he just hands the kid over. Just saying, he needs his money.
And the show's about nothing. The show is just about a dude running around.
Yeah, could just be. I mean, they keep trying to tell us that in the publicity for it. It's like, oh, well, it's just a Western, and it's not going to be like any other Star Wars show. Well, if he just shows up with a Force-sensitive Yoda baby and just hands it over, I wouldn't have seen that in any other Star Wars thing. I wouldn't have thought someone would do that, But we haven't seen, like, even in Rogue One, we have characters that are aware of the Force. You know what I mean? And we haven't seen any characters in this that appear to be aware of the Force.
Well,
We know
clearly,
from
I think the implication, obviously, is that the Yoda baby is force sensitive. They're going to basically screw up the lore and say that Yoda's entire race is very special and very attuned with the Force, and that's why they want to experiment on it because they want to get. In my mind, they don't have the Emperor anymore. They don't have Darth Vader. So my scenario would be more along the lines of they need to find some way to get something like that because they don't have it anymore. They don't have that edge. They lost their Sith. So I could see the Imperials, an Imperial remnant or something like that, saying, maybe we could create something to do this. That was actually kind of the idea in the Thrawn trilogy, right? You've read the Thrawn trilogy, haven't you?
yes.
So that was kind of the idea there, right? Where they basically cloned this kind of this Force user, and they were because the idea was that the Emperor was kind of like controlling everything with using the dark side to actually control his forces. And there was a big thing about the reason that they lost the battle was because the Emperor died because the Emperor was no longer controlling the fleet. Remember?
Yeah,
So,
I know, but I'm just not convinced that's what they're doing.
what's that?
I'm just not convinced that's what they're doing. I
Would it
really
be cool
honestly
if they
don't.
were? I mean, it's somewhere that it could be going. That's what I'm trying to say. Is like if it went
Yeah,
somewhere like that, where you had these Imperial remnant, they were like, you know what? And then it's a callback to the Thrawn series. It's like we lost because we didn't have the Emperor. The Emperor was the key. So we gotta find some new juice, which could lead to Snoke, right? We haven't even talked about Snoke, I guess, because we both kind of think that was a non-starter, but it could lead to Snoke. Snoke obviously is a Force user. It could lead to the Knights of Ren, right? We still don't know anything about the Knights of Ren. So are they running around? Could they be pulling the strings?
No, I don't think the Knights of Ren are pulling. I don't think this has anything to do with the Knights of Ren. I'm still not convinced we're even going to see them in Rise of Skywalker. I know they're selling toys of them and stuff, but I'm not even convinced they're going to show up in the movie. To be honest,
Hey, we're getting
the
red
Knights of
stormtroopers though.
Yeah, I know, but I think
red stormtroopers, man.
Yeah, but I think the Knights of Ren might just be a figment of Kylo's imagination, and they don't really exist.
We did
Just
see
saying.
them in The Force Awakens. We do get to see at least one scene of them, so we know they're not they're not his imagination.
How do you know they're not a figment of his imagination?
Because I saw them on the screen.
That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all. From my point of view, they're a figment of his imagination. I ain't seen them done anything. So here, if you will allow me one expletive deletive, and to quote Roadhouse, as I mentioned earlier, I like to do. So far, they ain't shown me shit. So I'm just saying, I'm not convinced. I'm just not convinced. We haven't seen the Knights of Ren do anything. I'm just not convinced.
Wouldn't this be a good opportunity
really
to introduce them, to have kind of show their origin and maybe that's why they want the Force power, because these are the Knights of Ren. Which, my understanding is, the Knights of Ren are supposed to be kind of an offshoot of the Vader cult. So the basically there's this cult that developed that was basically massive Darth Vader fans. And they kind of evolved into the Knights of Ren. If they're running around, I think that would be cool if they were a factor,
Sith groupies. Okay. I don't think they're doing that. I mean, if they're going to do that, they could have, like, Snoke could be at the behind all of this, but I just don't see any of that playing out. I really don't. I think this is just
my understanding is for Snoke. Basically, Snoke was the guy that took the remnant to beyond the Outer Rim. So basically, what Snoke was his origins are not defined, but my understanding is basically he was part of this plan, this idea for basically the Imperial remnant to just leave. But the obviously not everybody has done that, because the way that they have the continuity in the new movies was that there was one big battle a year after Return of the Jedi, and that was the Battle of Jakku, and that was the last stand of the Empire because it was still the Empire. It was still unified, and they lost. And at that point, they splintered. And the First Order is just one of those splinters. It's the splinter that decided to leave and go beyond the Outer Rim. So, in my mind, because I don't know exactly when this movie is, the First Order's gone. They've already left. They're already gone beyond the Rim. These Imperials that are left, they represent other remnants, other ideas. See what I'm saying?
Well, this is supposed to take place 5 years after the fall.
That would mean that the First Order is beyond the Rim. They're not even around.
Yeah.
The First Order is gone.
So this just goes back to what I said. He's just going to hand over the kid.
All that, and you can't even get into that lore just a little bit.
I can't. I don't see anything in this that tells me that's what they're going to do. I don't. After the second episode, I'll have a better feel if they have a large overarching thing that they're trying to do. Right now, I think it's just a dude trying to survive. I don't think there's going to be anything more to it than that. I really don't. And I think there's a really good chance he could just hand the Yoda kid over. I really think. Because he needs some money, right?
If he just hands the kid over, I mean,
wasn't he talking about the fuel was expensive? He needs the money, man. He needs a scratch. He's got to buy some more armor pieces, He's got to put fuel on the ship.
What I can see happening is he does take the kid back because he wants to know what's actually going on, and he wants to know, why was the IG unit there? Did you guys send him? What's going on there? So I could kind of see him being confused because remember, the Imperial Governor character, he said that he preferred to have the child alive, and if he killed it, that he wanted proof. You had to have proof. So, and clearly the scientist wanted the child alive.
Right.
So I don't know. There's clearly, I think, two different factions that had an interest in the child and had different ideas. So that's got to lead to something. Is all I'm saying. That's got to lead somewhere. That's got to be significant.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. I just
think this is funny because your attitude. You're the one that was saying that you liked it, and then you just seem like.
I can still like something and be pessimistic about what they're trying to achieve. If anything, I don't have any feelings from this first episode that the Yoda kid has any more significance than here's a cliffhanger to bring him back next week. And it could just be I've seen too much. A lot of genre entertainment right now. That's just how it works. They do enough fan service and enough callback to lead you to an interesting cliffhanger, and they don't know what to do with it. So I don't know. Because the thing of it is, there's no immediate thing with a Yoda baby that makes you think, oh, they might be alluding to this. That was just like a huge shock. It's like, what are they going to do?
I gave you a scenario.
Yeah, I know you did. But I'm just saying at the same point, too, there's a very good chance he could just hand the kid over because he needs the money. And the reason he shot the IG unit is he didn't want to split the bounty. Because he's that, moralistically bankrupt.
I don't see that. The temperament of the Mandalorian doesn't make sense. He was willing to split with the IG unit, even though he doesn't like droids or whatever. He reacted to the IG unit saying, I'm going to kill this baby. And he said, no, you're not doing that.
Or he could be, and he shot the IG unit because he didn't want to split the bounty.
Yeah, I just don't see that. I don't see that in the characterization of the character. The character, the character has some lightheartedness, goofiness to him and stuff like that. If he was like that, I just don't see him being the way he is. So I think that he's more dimensional than that, I think. And I'm coming from a perspective where I really don't know what to think about this show. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying I'm kind of in the middle where I'm just like, I'm not sure what to think because of the issues that I had with, like I told you, the unevenness of it. And I have some real lore problems with it. Like I'm really concerned that we're going to go in some really weird places with the lore that's going to be stupid and not make any sense. That's what I'm really afraid of, especially with the Yoda baby. So that's where I'm coming from.
Well, I guess we'll just see, because I honestly don't know. I don't have any. I don't have a lot of speculation. I'm like, I'm going to watch the show because it looks kind of interesting. But I honestly don't have any ideas what they're going to do with the Yoda baby. If I was in the room, I'd be pitching ideas that would come from Lone Wolf and Cub. But I don't think.
Well, let's go there. Let's go there because I want to end this on a positive note. If you come in after the pilot's been set, you're in the writer's room. This is the situation that you've been presented with. So, in other words, the first episode's been written. It's done. Where do we go from here?
Well, he saves the kid because he feels compelled to do it. And he basically ends up, everyone turns against him because they obviously want the kid. And he ends up going on the run with the kid.
Now, when you say everyone turns against him, does that include his clan? Does that include the guild? I mean, who's everyone?
I don't think the Mandalores turn against him. I think the Mandalores decide they want the baby because they think that because it does have an inherent Force user ability, and that's an intangible power that no one has right now. And everyone saw that what Force users did, in the past, whether you want to look at the Emperor or Vader or the Jedi of old. Let's
not forget about Luke.
Well, yeah.
Luke is out there.
Right. They want to find a way to use that child in order to basically somehow take Mandalore back. But the Mandalorian goes on the run with the child because he feels compelled to do something, but he doesn't quite understand why. And then it's just, like I said, I would just look at it as he's on the run with the child for a couple of episodes. And in all honesty, I would end it the way that I suggested before. There's a scenario. It looks like he's down for the count. There's someone else there. They can't see who it is. This person picks the child up and goes to leave, and all we see are hints of a cloak, and we get a little bit of a Luke theme. And Luke rescues the Yoda baby and leaves with it and takes it to his Jedi Academy. And
later maybe be slaughtered by the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, possibly.
That's an edgy one right there, because if you stay within the Disney War world, that's ultimately the fate of the Yoda baby.
Yeah,
to be slaughtered by the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I would do. I would have him.
I'm just saying, Dave. That kind of gives me chills, because that's if you fully invest into what's already done, because you can't change anything that's been done. That's a scenario,
right. And that's part of what I'm saying is the problem.
It would mean that Luke or one of his apprentices or somebody, because we don't know. You said we don't get to see his face, so that.
Yeah, but I would totally have it that it's Luke.
Okay,
fair enough. You would hear lightsaber sounds. You would see that it was a green lightsaber that was being used, but you wouldn't see who was wielding it. You would see the edge of a cloak, and you would get the hint of the Luke theme as he saves the Yoda baby. And the Mandalorian is incapacitated. He doesn't save the Mandalorian. You know what I mean? The Mandalorian is just left there, and he kind of picks himself up. You know what I mean? And the adventure with the Yoda baby is basically over.
Is that something Luke would do? Would Luke just leave the Mandalorian that's been protecting this child?
I think he would. The one
I think Jake Skywalker would do that, but I don't think Luke would do that.
I think he would.
I don't think Luke would do that.
Because I don't think Luke would know exactly what the Mandalorian's connection. Like in my story, when Luke shows up, he's just detected that this child is out there and it's in distress. And when he shows up, he's not sure who's what. He knows there's Imperials, and he knows there's mercenaries, and he knows they're fighting over this child. So what would he do? He would save the child. He wouldn't stop to question everybody lying on the ground, like, hey, have you been protecting this kid? Hey, have you been protecting this kid? Hey, do you know where this kid came? You know what I mean?
But
Like
I think he would have a sense because, I mean, Luke is essentially the most powerful Force user at this point in the universe. So it's like, to me, I think he would have some sense that that the Mandalorian was connected to the child, in a positive way, and that you know what I mean. I just feel like it's not like he interviewed him. It's just he knows because of the Force,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I'm in the room and pitching the idea, that's where I take the idea. And if you're in the room and we need to find a way to flesh it out more, you know what I mean? We're gonna have to figure it out. But I mean, I would just have him go.
Because
I would have him go on the run with the Yoda baby, protecting it, compelled to do so, even though he's not sure why. And it would turn out that it's basically the Yoda baby inadvertently manipulating him. The same way that Jedis could manipulate people, just inadvertently. It wouldn't know, you know what I mean, exactly what it was doing. And the Mandalorian would basically have nowhere to run because everyone wants to, basically exploit the child some sort of way. And then eventually he gets to a point where there's nowhere left to run. It looks like he's going to die in this battle. He's down for the count. He thinks it's over. And then this mysterious force is on board the ship, taking people out. It's alluded that it's Luke. And then Luke basically saves the Yoda baby and then leaves. Now, the Yoda baby in turn could, lift something heavy off the Mandalorian so he could also escape with his life. But you have to remember, too, like, I don't think the Mandalorian at that point would realize he'd been slightly manipulated, too. So that's just my idea. I'm not saying it's a great idea. I'm just saying, Wednesday night, 10 o'clock, that's what I got. Because I'm telling you right now, there's a good chance he's just handing that kid over in the next episode.
All right. Well, on that note, I guess that's our review of The Mandalorian.
And I don't mean to be snarky. I really don't. And I, like I said, I enjoyed it. But the more I thought about the Yoda baby thing at the end, the more that's the part I'm like, I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea where they're going with this. I mean, there's all kinds of fun things they could do, but I think it'd be cool. You never know. The Force user who saves the Yoda baby in the end could be Ahsoka. That would be really cool. If they have a live action Ahsoka Tano and she shows up and she basically saves the Yoda baby and takes it with her. But I'm pretty sure she's not the one who's hunting the child and hiring mercenaries to find it. That's clearly a more malevolent force,
I'm very curious about the motivation of why they want the child, So I think that'll be interesting. I'm hoping it's interesting. I hope it's just not something dumb. So
yeah, well, we'll just have to see. Do we think that's good? Are we ready to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, cool. I want to thank you for listening and hopefully watching this live episode of the Rogues Radio podcast. Again, my name is Dave Beatty. I've been one of your hosts. You can see some of my art. You can learn more about me and my other various projects that I'm working on my website at davebeatty.com. That's www.davebeaty.com. Also, if you'd like to support the show, feel free to, buy a sketch or two. That would be really nice. I want to thank our co-host and the gentleman who's actually hosting the live stream, Mr. Eric Alexander, for being back on the show, providing those awesome co-hosting duties as he always done. Tell Eric, please tell the folks watching or listening at home where they can learn more about you on the interwebs.
Well, I'm most active on Twitter, so you can always find me on Twitter at BassGod14, BASSGOD14. That's on Twitter. That's also my YouTube handle. If you're watching this perhaps on Twitter or you're watching it on Facebook, my YouTube handle is also BassGod14. And always keep in mind my company, Bad Bob Production.